It is live.
Okay.
What's up?
Eric, good to be here, man.
I think it is very good to be here. Yes.
Yes. I love doing podcasts. I never.
Have you been on many?
Well, people who know me know I'm a big Raider fan, Las Vegas Raiders, and when I'm on X, formerly Twitter, I generally am on there for two things: real estate and Raider news.
Oh, yeah?
And so I was always posting on these guys, certain guys, threads, and they asked me to join a podcast. They're like, "Hey, do you want to come on our podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Oh, nice.
So I came on one time, and then I just became a permanent fixture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like, "Come back next
So they
week."
keep bringing you on.
Well, it's just
That's so funny.
there's the three of us, and I usually try to, I don't.
Are you a Raiders fan? Are you from Vegas? Are you from Oakland?
Here's the short story. I played for the Raiders when I was in 6th grade. My first year of football was the Silver and Black Raiders. My head coach, Coach Lee, was from Oakland, and so he coached a team, the Raiders. We were Silver and Black. I still have a picture of me and like this old football stuff.
That's funny.
And that year, my Raider team, I always played soccer.
Yeah.
Previous to that, and or American football, and the Raiders just destroyed the Washington Redskins at the time. The Commanders now. They used to be the Washington Redskins,
and that ingrained in your.
And I was just like, my first year of football, my professional team wins. But here's the other part of it: is that my grandparents were our Steeler fans.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of odd because I became a Raider fan. I didn't, when I became the Raider fan, I didn't know much about the Raiders other than, because I was in 6th grade, other than they won the Super Bowl and I played for the Raiders.
Yeah.
But because my grandparents were Steelers fans, like my uncle, 72 Dolphins, perfect, team that won every game, didn't lose a game, won the Super Bowl. He's a Dolphin fan. My brother, a Dolphin fan. My aunt, a Giants fan. My other aunt, a Redskins fan. So no Dallas fans. Growing up in Texas, zero Dallas fans.
Yeah, that's interesting. I grew up in California, so there was always the division of 49ers versus Raiders, and there were people like,
oh my God,
I'm here, I'm there, and they were always at odds with each other. It was pretty fun.
I take my fandom to a certain level. Like, I'm serious about it, but I'm not so serious that I feel like I have to get in a fight. That's where I kind of like.
Some people kill over that shit.
I know.
Yeah.
People are like, "You're a huge Raider fan." I'm like, me,
Yeah.
I'm up there, but not like everybody.
Nothing crazy.
I don't feel like I have to get in a fight over.
Well, if you're on the Twitter page getting invited to podcasts, you're a fan. You're in there.
Oh yeah. Well, and I try to keep it. So I think when you get on social media, you have to have like a thing that you get known for, right?
Yeah.
So I chose this thing. If you've ever been to a Raider game, and when I say that, I don't mean in Vegas or in Oakland or in L.A., just a Raider game where the Raiders are playing. So you could be in Houston and you're going to hear this. You're going to hear Raiders. That's what you're going to hear the whole time because that's what we do. So I try to keep it positive. Like, if there's cuss words or the N word or something like that, I won't repost that.
Yeah, I hope not.
There's a lot of that. Or if it's just not, I want it to be happy things. Like somebody buys a new Raider uniform, or this is my first game, just stuff like that. Then I'll repost it, but I won't say, look at this guy. I just put Raiders.
Right.
And so I just kept doing that. And then I did have one.
So you're like a Raider fan page almost.
I did have one tweet that went over 80,000.
Oh, wow.
80,000 likes, reposts, all of that. And we were I can't remember what year it was. It was probably 21, somewhere around there. My Raiders were looking like they were going to hire they were looking for a new quarterback or something. Carr was still there, so I don't know what was exactly, I don't remember exactly what was going on. And so I posted this picture of Uncle Rico. You know who Uncle Rico is?
No idea.
Uncle Rico is this guy. He's a character from Napoleon Dynamite, the movie. He's their
Oh, the
he's
yeah,
their
yeah,
uncle,
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
like, I
yeah,
could have been
yeah.
a professional.
The guy who was like backing up over the Tupperware and then it smashes and then he drives off.
That's his brother, but same deal, same.
Okay.
Same thing. And so it's a picture, and so Uncle Rico has this like lore of like, just you'll see his like the Dallas Cowboys just brought in free agent, Uncle Rico, and he's like a Dallas Cowboy. Same with the Raiders. So I found this picture of it's another quarterback, Matt McGloin, with Uncle Rico's head perfectly placed on it. And I was like, we should try this guy. He can throw a football over a mountain, because that's what he says in the movie. I can throw this football over a mountain.
Yeah.
And really what took off, it wasn't that my tweet was so amazing, is that there's another linebacker from the 60s and 70s. And of course, his name eludes me now. It'll come back to me. He reposted it. Oh, my gosh. He reposted it. Or his daughter reposted it. This is how you know that it's raw, when somebody leaves their, their phone on. He reposted it, and that's what got.
Got it
ADs.
going. Yeah.
That's what got all. And so, but then usually, like when it comes to Twitter, like I'm not there to discuss politics.
Right. That's what I feel like most of X is politics, because I'm pretty active on all of them, and X seems to be the hardest one to break because it's so. I feel like it's very political centric.
The robots know you.
Yeah.
They know what you click on for some reason. So the algorithm's just like, oh, this person likes this. Let's just jam a bunch of that in front of his face.
Right.
And make sure that he does or doesn't, or she does or doesn't like it. And
right.
So the more you read, the more it's going to throw that in your face. So real estate, there's some political stuff that I see Raider fans post and real estate people post. And I generally, I just skip over it, but that is my short story. Raider fan.
Of being a Raiders fan. Being on X. What's your X handle?
Troopers91.
Troopers91.
Which actually gets me a lot of MAGA hits.
Really? Why?
Well, because Troopers, where I grew up in El Paso, I went to Eastwood High School, and the mascot is the Trooper. Eastwood Troopers. 91 is the year I graduated.
What does that have to do with MAGA?
Well, a lot of Army, a lot of military think the Trooper is
it's sort of
slanted towards the right.
Yeah.
And so
so you get a lot of like your brother for the cause, a lot of that.
Something like that. I can't say exactly. I'm not there for politics. So if they friend me, I don't unfriend them. I just don't if they follow me, I don't follow them back because it's just going to put more of that stuff in my feed.
I gotcha.
So I do read some politics, but it's very little.
I try to stay away from it as much as possible, just because I think in a way, even the articles that you see are designed to piss you off at surface level, and then you go and read more and you're like, well, actually that makes more sense, but then now you're in a hole of like, well, then who's right? And it's like, well, does it really matter in my day anyway? Yeah.
And the way I've got one vote, you have one vote.
Right.
I'm not conspiring to like try to get more votes to one side or the other. So when I look at politics, I look at both sides because we're in real estate. So I have my one vote. We're a red state in Texas, so it doesn't matter which side I vote for. I voted for both.
Real estate especially, because I feel like you need to remain impartial and kind of float in the middle just to kind of get an idea of what's happening next.
I kind of, and this is not like a real estate answer. I'm economically conservative and socially liberal.
Right. Which is the pretty classic answer.
Right in the middle.
Yeah. That's now, what everyone is dueling with.
Like my social liberties or liberalness, I guess you could say, it only goes so far. Like there's some spots where people are like, you sound like a conservative. I'm like, no, I just, I'm not.
It always comes down to, yes, morally I have typical morals, but also money is important.
Exactly. So then it's like, all right, Trump's in office.
Right.
That's who's in office right now. I can't do anything about it and wouldn't try to do anything about it. So
Right.
how do I make it work for me?
Mm-hmm.
What should I be diving into that makes this presidency, this 4 years, benefit me?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is it crypto? Is it, what's happening that I need to get into?
Let's dive into that. So Trump presidency, obviously you're a realtor. How have you seen him impact real estate? What's been that?
Well, I made a prediction that, kind of came true. And I don't know that it was usually Austin has been really strong through January, through March, April, May, sometimes all the way through the summer. And I'm not talking 2020 like previous. So I said, well, there's so much going on. And when I say so much going on, Trump won the popular vote. So it's not like he won the Electoral College and the majority of people voted for the Democrat and he won because of the Electoral College. And then we have this debate about should the Electoral College even be here? It's here.
It's here.
On.
That's it. That's yeah.
That's our system.
I hate that argument. Actually, I think it is. It's just like this is just the way it is.
It's a loser argument.
Yeah, it really is. And when the opposite side happens, nobody talks about it. You know what I mean?
It's like,
it's a loser argument. It's like, oh, we lost, but the popular vote. It's like, well, that's kind of why it's in place is because they knew that the popular vote might be a problem. That's what the whole founding fathers did.
Yeah, it's checks and balances.
It's checks and balances.
That's where we're at. So, so we've got Trump in office, but he wins the popular vote. That was the first time a Republican won the popular vote and Electoral College, I think, since Bush Sr.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a long time. So they've always just won the Electoral College.
Right, Republicans,
yeah.
Right.
And I could be wrong on this, so if you're out there, this is not a political statement. I've heard that. I'm pretty sure it's pretty true. It's been pretty far back. Anyway, so I said, well, now you have all of these Republicans that voted, or people, because not everybody that voted for Trump, I think, was a Republican, that see this bright future. And it usually takes 60 days for anything to really happen. I didn't view Biden's economy as a bad one. I thought it was actually, inflation was coming down, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, again, not super like, if I say, oh, he created all these jobs, somebody could say, well, they were all government jobs. I don't really want to. If you have a job, you're making money.
Done. Yeah.
Right. So I looked at it as, well, the first 3 months are going to be probably pretty good. If rates can kind of just stabilize, not
for Biden's presidency.
Well, no, for Trump's presidency.
Oh, for Trump's.
But
okay,
that's going to carry over, right?
Right.
Inflation was heading in the right direction. If we could get stable rates. So even if it was like 7.2,
right,
7.5, as long as it stayed there. But when you go from 7.5 to 6.5 to 7.1,
you get people who are noticing,
then
and then they try to ride a wave.
They're trying to time the market.
They're trying to time it. Yeah,
there's just no way of doing it.
There's no way of doing it.
It's time in the market, not timing the market. So,
right. But I feel like lately, over the last couple months, it's been pretty damn stable.
It has been.
Yeah.
It's been really stable. And that's why we've seen there was a lot of action. It's almost like 2024. A lot of action, not like it is. A lot of action through May, and then it's just nosedived. And I think a lot of that is what I was just talking about with Trump. There were a lot of people kind of preparing for Trump to win because that's who they were voting for.
Right.
And for things to get better immediately.
Right.
And so they are the ones that were buying, Republican, Democrat, whatever. And so they went out and spent their money. And a lot of them in Austin at least, got great deals.
Right,
they
right.
were ready. The great deal is, deals are still happening, right? And so I thought this was my prediction. Let's get back to that.
But those deals are better now, don't you think?
Rates are still higher. So, what is it?
But things are slower.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which means houses are getting lower.
Correct. So my prediction was if Trump says something about real estate,
right,
it'll be 6 months of really good Austin. It's booming. If he doesn't, 3 months. And he said a little bit, but he didn't say a ton.
Right.
He mentioned it And then he mentioned, I think he put something in the, he was quoted in some magazine as saying he was going to get rates down to 3%. But when I say talk about it, I mean in his inaugural speech.
That's the big thing I hated about Trump was he keeps talking about how he's going to bring rates down. And it's like he has no control over that. But he's just emailing Jerome a bunch.
That is the beauty of it, is because
you think it just changes people's minds?
Yeah, they just it's like, yeah, he's going to do it. So they go out and buy a house. Or they sell their house and move somewhere else, or it makes things happen.
God, that's so dumb, though, don't you think?
Well, I mean, I think what's happened is the reason why the market is slowing down is this and this reason only. To buy a car, I can go out today and buy a car.
Right.
Right. To buy a house, I don't know.
Right.
There's just not that many people that are like, let's go buy a new house. Let's go spend $500,000 on a house like that.
Well, I mean, it's just uncertainty. If you don't know what's going to happen next, there's really no framework of what's happening next.
You put all of those things in the bag, right?
Yeah.
Can we afford it? Is our credit score? What are the schools? Just any question that comes up with why you would buy a home is now in this
uncertainty.
But you had all these people that were getting ready. They're ready. They've bought. And so now you have to have another wave of people like, wait a minute.
It's a good time.
Eric and Sean said last year that the market was going to, start trending downward. And they were right. Let's start getting ready. So how long does it take buyers to get ready? That depends on the buyer, right?
Right. So I think there's also a breaking point in pricing. So there's going to be a breaking point where if things are slow enough and homes get low enough, people start going, okay, that's a good deal. It's got to be now.
We both know the easiest way to affect somebody's monthly is getting the interest rate down, right?
Right.
You drop it a point, that's significant.
But the second easiest is bringing down the price of the house.
It's the price. But 1 point and $10,000, there's no...
Right.
1 point, I think it's like 40 to 50 depending on the price of the house before you really start to make a difference.
And that's why builders are just destroying right now.
Exactly.
And that's the other problem I have with the Austin market. Like coming from a lender, is it seems like most people, if they are first time buying here in Austin, they're going to a new build because you get a lower rate. There's really no issues with the home. There's no problems with inspection, and they're going to throw a bunch of money at you to do it. So as from a lender perspective, it's like, dang, that kind of sucks because everybody's going there and there's 180, or actually no, there's 360 degrees of places where you can build in Austin.
Well, so my only thing with builders and buyers right now is that when you move to Austin, you're likely not getting new construction close to Austin. So you're in Buda.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like where I live off William Cannon and McKinney Falls Parkway over there, Easton Park, there's building stuff over there. It's still
But that's probably the
Away.
closest.
Exactly.
That's the closest.
So Austin is a young, hip town. I mean, it always has. It's a college town.
Right.
So if you're moving here and you're like, I want this really nice house so that I can scooter downtown.
You got to be Travis Heights, Bolden Creek. You got to
be
be
millions.
Yeah, in the millions.
Right? Maybe 7, 8, but you're getting a really small home. 5. You might be able to do a condo at 5. But then now we're talking interest rates, and a condo at 5 on the east side might have a $400 a month HOA. And if it's 50, you probably don't want to live there because 50 is not enough for the HOA to actually maintain the building.
Right.
And those are the things that you got to look at. But so I think the builders have an advantage with all of that stuff, but they're still not killing it. They're still not like I think I sent this to you earlier. Right now, that data was queried last week. 17,125 active listings.
And then like 4,000 buyers or something.
7,700 buyers.
And then we
almost
were only
10,000 more listings.
We were behind Miami and what was the other one?
I can't remember. I think it was Florida.
Somewhere
in Florida.
Yeah, it was Miami and
Dallas
somewhere else. Yeah. That's another thing that is annoying about the Austin market, especially, is it seems like here it's so much more volatile than anywhere else in the country right now. We had a massive wave, and the wave is gone, and now we're suffering more than any. Because other places in the country, when I talk to people anywhere else, they're saying real estate's going pretty good.
Yeah.
But here it feels not so great.
What I've noticed, and this trend might not continue for a long time, but I feel like Austin specifically leads the way. We shot way up. Everybody else kind of shot up. We're shooting way down. Everybody else is kind of coming down. But I think everybody is a year behind us. So last year, a lot of people had last year for Austin was the worst
that's a good
year
way
in
of saying
35 years.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pulse on the rest of the world, kind of,
And
or the United States at least.
Texas in general, when I talk to economists, Texas is, like California has the fourth largest economy in the world.
Right.
That one state. So with a grain of salt when I say this, Texas usually has a bigger economy than the other 49 states, right? So Texas is here, everybody else is down here. When they go down, Texas goes down, and it just kind of goes this way. With real estate, I think everybody else is having our 2024, and in some places that might not be that bad. But next year they're going to have their 2025 where it's a really heavy buyer's market everywhere. And Austin is just there with that separation, almost 10,000.
How far away do you think we are from the breaking point where things switch?
I think I'm seeing predictions that rates will be down at 5.9 by the end of the year.
Right.
I've seen that from different sources, but different sources quoting the same source, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Redfin is still way up there. I can't remember the second
See,
one.
I don't even believe that. I don't think the Fed is in any way, shape, or form signaling that they're going to drop rates.
Well, here's what traditionally happens when the Fed drops rates, the mortgage rate goes up. That's just what happens.
What do you mean?
Like immediately, like the Fed drops rate, like the next day, mortgage rates go up. Because they're not, everybody thinks that they're connected and they're not.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But it's different from when they drop rates versus when they signal that they're going to drop. If Jerome Powell came out and said, we are thinking of dropping rates 3 or 4 times this year, if he said that statement today, mortgage rates would drop.
I think so.
But the day they actually do it, they could go up. That is true. That is true.
So I think that's if you're out here, if you're here and you're thinking about buying, you're thinking about getting in the market, this is how you time the market. If you're going to, you wait for the Fed to say something, and then the market's going to react to that.
Right.
And if they we think 2 drops, that means the rates are going to start falling until that drop, and then they're going to go up, and then they're going to start falling until they.
And then they hit a spike. That is true. That's for sure true. But it all comes from the Fed announcement of we are thinking of dropping rates. Yeah,
because it's still a 6-month lag between when the Fed drops rates and let's say that somebody wants to hire 10 more people. It's still 6 months for them to kind of get all that together, rearrange. What they're taking from revenue and profit to pay for these people.
Yeah.
Maybe taking a loan out. It's still a long time for that actually to hit. So the rates that happened last year, the end of last year, those rate cuts are just starting to take shape in the business world. Right? So we haven't really seen that impact yet.
Right. What about the tariffs?
I think tariffs are just, here's what I would say.
Because that's been the main leader of ambiguity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what I think about the tariffs. There's a lot of companies that have already bought equipment 8 months ago and paid for it. And now they're paying a tariff to get it off the boat. So it's not actually hitting China or wherever they got it from because it's already been paid for. Now, I'm not saying that's every company. So it has hurt some companies. What I think about the tariffs is this. It's just negotiations right now. Because,
those negotiations,
we tariff Canada tariffs us. Then we take a cool. Then we tariff them more. Then we,
which is leading to more uncertainty because people are seeing this back and forth and going, well, what the hell is going to happen?
I think that is what the administration. I don't want to speak for them. In my opinion, I think that's what they want. It's not that they want uncertainty. They just want to know. Like when I'm doing a deal, sometimes I'll ask questions that I wouldn't say shouldn't ask, but they opened up Pandora's box. So you're like, okay, I'll give you an example. So like I was doing a transaction. I was on buy side. The seller was new construction, but not a big builder. And we had agreed to terms verbally, and they came back and wanted to change one of the terms. And it was a big term. And I knew my clients were going to go for it. So I just said, okay. But the reason why they needed to change this term was so that they could make money. And that's what they told me. They said, we can't do this because we'll have to bring money to the table to close the deal. And I'm like, so it's my client's responsibility to make sure you're profitable.
Right.
So they opened. So I just said, okay, well, when does the bank take it over? Right. That's not a question that you would normally ask. When are you going to lose the house? We'll deal with the bank when that happens. If that's in a month, we'll just wait.
Right.
So I asked that question and then I waited about 30 seconds, said, okay, don't ask that question. Don't answer. What's the plan for the house?
Right.
And so I think that's an example. So I think that's kind of what these tariffs right now are doing. Well, if we tariff this person, what are they going to do?
Just the details of negotiation.
They're constantly, at least,
right.
Lord, please. I hope they're keeping up with this data.
Right.
Like if they're just doing it like Monopoly, hey, let's do this. Then we're in trouble.
You have a positive outlook that it's all going to shake out well for everybody?
It's America, man. I hate, I know this is going to sound conceited, but right now we're running the world. And
right.
Maybe China will be running it 40, 50 years from now, but right now we're running
There's
it.
a lot of hype about China running stuff.
I mean,
And I don't know if I completely agree. I'm always like, I feel like China is definitely a leader in some ways, but definitely still a lot of people see them as a bit, I don't know. I don't want to say the word backward, but not generally speaking the leader that people want to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right now we're the leader because of our economics.
Right.
They can do things with their money that people would say is unfair.
Right.
Raising rates, lower rates, doing certain things because the government's running everything.
Right.
So I think America's a good place to do business in. We like to buy things.
Right.
We like to live a certain way, and we try to aspire to live a certain way. And houses being one of them, cars, TVs, all that stuff. I still keep hearing that Americans keep spending, even though there's all this stuff, uncertainty going on now.
Well, because now you can finance a burrito, is apparently
right. So I mean, if you can pay, you can really. If you can, pay DoorDash with a credit card, you're definitely financing a burrito at that point.
That's crazy.
So I mean, I think it's just I think it's early on, and I hope that's what they're doing. Let's tariff these people to see what, and it's not so much to see, in my mind, it's not so much to see what that country does. It's also to see what other countries do. Like if we get if we're getting steel from a certain company and we tariff them, and I say we because even if you don't believe it, even if you don't like it, it's still being done. Who else comes up? Who else says, hey, we've got steel. We've got this great steel. We'll sell it to you for half the price. Like what happens there? Like gas, like I think Africa, Russia, and there's another country that they've got plenty of gas.
Yeah.
Plenty of oil, excuse me. But nobody buys it because they're ostracized for some reason, right? But then, so it's off-market buying.
Well, maybe they don't have the infrastructure to sell it as well as someone like the Saudis or
exactly. And then now you're pissing off the Saudis because you're buying
their oil,
Russian oil, right? And
but now we are like almost completely independent on oil these days.
Yeah, well, so I don't disagree with that, and but as far as the tariffs are concerned, I think that's kind of what's happening. They're just kind of seeing.
It's just negotiation.
It's just a negotiation. It's just
and we just got to wait to see how it falls off.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But inside of that, like prices in Austin, prices are going down. And I think so let's talk about agents because, and I'm obviously an agent and you deal with agents all the time. In 2023, October of 2023, there were 19,000 agents signed up for ABOR. So legally or could sell a home in Austin. The agents that could sell a home.
Year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago. Only 9,000 of them had actually done a transaction in October. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people out there or...
I think it's way worse now.
Well, what I think has happened is a lot of those agents, what I realized at the time was like, I said, wow, I didn't know that half the agents at ABOR were part-timers. Because there are brokers that don't do any business, but 9,000 of them?
Yeah.
Like there's a small, maybe 1,000 of them aren't doing business. I mean, and I think that would be stretching it. So what I thought would happen, and I don't know the new numbers, but I thought a lot of them would not renew their license. Because it's from 2023 October to now, it's a skills market. What does that mean? It means that we've been in a seller's market for a long time, since 2012, basically. So if you were able to procure a listing, the market just kind of helped you out because it's going to sell.
Right.
Were you a fierce negotiator? Maybe, you know?
But now that's not the case at all. Now it's like the exact opposite.
Now it's like you have to, on either side, you have to have skill. Like, and so what does it mean on the buy? So the sell side, you really got to know how to price this home. And for everybody out there that's thinking about selling, let me say this. I think from the peak of COVID, let's call that 100%, we're still only down 34% from there. I think I think it was 38 the last time I saw. So that, what is that?
You're saying that drop off isn't enough to rationalize where we are?
No, I'm saying is if you're thinking about selling and you think you missed it, you missed the boat, you're still part of it because a healthy market is 3% every year, right? 3% equity growth.
Right.
And we had whatever it was, let's call that 100%.
But we're definitely not there.
Yeah, we're way over 3% from 2019. Like if you had 100,000
year over year,
from an equity growth standpoint, yes. So
equity growth.
So the boom was so large,
right,
that it's blown away. If we
that
just
it's
had a
skewed,
stable
that
market,
it's skewed the scaling. Okay, I see. Because
So
I was going to say, like, I feel like I'm losing equity these days, but because the initial jump was so big, the average is there still.
Exactly. So let's say you had 200,000 equity at the peak, and now you only have 125. Like you did lose some.
You did lose some, but the average is still a gain.
Still a gain. And
you're still part of it. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
So then if you just did 3%, let's say that was 60. You're still ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Where people are getting in trouble is that in Austin, you were able to hold a home for since 2012, you were able to hold it about 3 years and get some equity growth out of it after 3 or 4 years. We've flipped on that now. And so if you bought in 2021 or 2020, you may be getting that. You may not. You may break even. But getting back, again, it really comes back to the skill of selling the home, pricing the home. On the other side, skill of getting a buyer to understand when it's a good deal.
Right.
Because if you've got, a choice, if there are 10 homes that meet or exceed what you want out of a home, I mean,
discounting.
Maybe you wait one more week
right,
to see if it gets even better. And that is a skill to get a buyer to understand that it's time to pull the trigger.
Let me ask you a question. Discounting circumstance, case-by-case situations, would you normally recommend that someone never sell but always rent out an old home?
I would say, this is what I think what it speaks to. One of the ways that Americans can build wealth is through real estate.
Yeah.
We're one of the few countries, really, that anybody, if you got a credit score and a down payment,
you can do it.
You can take the ride and buy a house, even if you don't have a down payment, right?
Right.
Not all countries are like that. So you can build wealth by doing exactly that, buying a home, living in it, moving into another home, renting that one out.
Right.
You just did that every 7 years. You'd have some homes right now.
You'd be a wealthy man. Yeah.
Would interest rates drive up the monthly so that you wouldn't be able to get the the monthly mortgage paid via the rent,
Right.
that could happen. So you might be taking a small haircut.
Yeah,
on
but
one.
over time you could refinance, you could do something to change that. And, again, it's time in the market. So
in the market. So I think it's possible, and I have clients that have done it.
so you generally would say then yes, you recommend if you can keep a home and rent it out and don't list if you can.
Yes. Well, even if you can't. So I've got clients that are like, they're not underwater. And this was a question I answered on Twitter. And the question was like, oh, I'm selling my home and I can't get what I want for it. And the rent doesn't cover the mortgage. I'm trapped. And I'm like, you're not trapped. First you have to decide if why you're selling is a true have to. I have to do it.
Right.
Like, I got a job making me twice my salary. I have to move.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a have to. Or I have to move back here to take care of an elderly person or something.
I have
like
to
that.
get the money out to do something.
Or if it's,
and that's a circumstance thing, like I said.
Yeah. So,
But-
but so I have clients that their have to is just they're breaking up or something.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And so I just say, look, getting a renter to pay the majority of the rent of the mortgage, and you paying a little bit for them to live there is much better than taking a loss on the house.
Yeah.
Right. So again, time in the market, like it's going to recover. Right. You're going to get to the point where you could just dump it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And make them and get your money back, or you could keep it longer.
Right.
And when the market returns, because as one of the things about Austin right now is, and I say this about Dallas and a lot of metros, we don't even have a toll road that goes all the way around. Not that I love toll roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you look at Houston, they're on like their 7th ring.
Yeah.
You look at Dallas, they're on their 4th.
We barely have one.
We don't even have one
yet.
Yeah. We got one in planning, right? We don't have the Southwest. Right. We don't have.
Would it be 183?
It's going to be, well, it's I-30 to 45 to Mopac to 45, but there's the lower 45 is not complete yet. Meaning it's there's a section from 35 to I-30, but there's not a section from
right.
I-35.
You can see it when you pull up a map of Austin too. There's like that break right there in the center.
And they're still doing the environmental study to make sure there's not like a salamander or a horsefly or something in there that would get extinct. It's weird because I was in land surveying for a long time, so I've seen both sides of it. I've seen like, oh my gosh, it takes forever. And
make sure there's no Indian burial ground or something. Yeah.
But then I've seen like a developer just whack out a 90 inch in circumference, right? So a circumference inch is about, say 2 inches.
Yeah.
That is a massive, massive tree, well over 300 years old. We go out there Thursday, it's there. We go out there Friday, it's toothpicks everywhere.
That's crazy.
And so like you have to have this balance between the hippies and the developers. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the hippies win, sometimes the developers win.
Yeah, that's an interesting job, though, to be the hippie to prevent a developer. Because they don't actually stop them. They just kind of hold off. And they say, hold on, we got to take
just make sure we're doing the right.
Let's just make sure. Yeah.
And that the studies take a long time. So.
Yeah, that was something that Trump was actually very critical of. That was one of his huge points, was like, I know how to make development happen. And the problem is that there's too many of these government, hippie programs who are like, stop, you can't do that, you can't do this. Yeah. And he prided himself on, I'm very good at shutting that conversation down and getting it done. And I was like, yeah, I guess, but man, I guess you hate salamanders.
How do you tell the states what to do?
Yeah.
Right? Like each state is their own. They've got their own laws. They got their own.
Yeah.
Their own things going on. So
I had another question too. I wanted to go in this direction. What do you think of wholesalers?
You know what? Here, I think wholesalers are. So I think the thing with wholesalers is right now that it's in their description. They're a seller.
Yeah.
And so in the market right now, there's a lot of sellers that don't understand where the market is going. And so the wholesalers don't understand it either. A lot of custom home builders took baths on their projects, not because they didn't get a high sell price, but because all of their profit was eaten up in the entry price. So they came in too high. It's just if we could have predicted, they would have, if they would have known this would have happened, they would have never bought a year ago at 500,000. So now builders are like, I'm not paying that. So a wholesaler, the numbers have to really work.
Right.
For the builder, right? And those numbers are shrinking, right? So what was 400,000 now has to be 125.
Right.
Where do they fit in?
But what do you feel about them in like an ethical
You know what I
way?
would say? So to me, there's two different kinds of wholesalers.
Yeah.
Right? And this is how I describe them. There's the close, and there's the assignment. What's the difference? The close is a wholesaler who actually buys the property off of the owner,
The original owner, yeah.
right? And then I call it close because it happens almost simultaneously.
Right.
They close, 5 minutes later they're closed.
They find an investor and then they sell it.
It's already all done. So they procure the property through a contract. They find somebody to buy it, right? Then they close with the owner. Now they own it. Then they close with the developer.
But the wholesaler does own the property for a time frame.
Brief moment.
Whereas assignment is contract is drawn and then you sell that contract.
That's it. But the thing with the assignment is everybody knows what everybody's making. A close, you never know.
You never know what that guy's deal was. So you don't know how shafted you got as the final investor.
I would say if the numbers work, it shouldn't matter. I think the ethical part of it comes into what did the original seller get? What did the owner get? So this is like a really dastardly description. And I'm not saying there are wholesalers out here who do this. If they paid the homeowner $100,000 and sold it for $500,000, who made out like a bandit?
Oh,
right?
the wholesaler. Yeah, that's
right?
crazy.
And they would just say, well, we're just doing business.
Yeah.
So that's right. And I'm not saying this so that people can be like, those wholesalers. And I know real estate agents that hate wholesalers. I don't. They have a function. There are homes out there that have been, caught on fire, and half of it's burned down. And I see them on the MLS, and I'm like, this, I don't, I still throw it over to my investors, like, let's really lowball them, because it has to be torn down. You can't fix that.
Right.
So or dilapidated, there's a space for them. And now, if they go outside that space, so here's part of the space. If you have a house that the taxable value on the land is more than the improvements, you've got to tear down.
The taxable value on the land is more than the improvements. Okay, I'm with you.
So if the Travis County, let's just say Travis County, if Travis County thinks that the house is worth $20,000, and again, this is an extreme just to prove the point, and they think the land is worth $1 million, poof, that house is gone. It's gone,
yeah,
right?
That thing's gone.
Because if the land is worth $1 million, that means there are
the house is in the way.
$3, $4, $5 million homes creeping up all around.
Yeah,
it, right?
and that house is just in the way.
It's just in the way.
Yeah.
Now in like 78757, Crestview area, I did see this new trend come in where homes around 1,100 to 1,200 square foot. Most of them didn't have garages. They either had a converted carport, or they may have had a garage at one time that was converted into put back into the house. But they had a huge lot. Normally those homes would be torn down, but they weren't. Somebody got them. They I don't know how they procured them, but they procured them at a price that fixing them up to make them look like a brand new home, and then selling them in the 6 to 7 range, which was a part of that market that didn't really exist the last couple of years. Really, I mean, they sold quickly. And just to further that point, last year I did a lot of open houses. This is how we met. I did 2 open houses every weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, from Labor Day through Christmas. I missed Thanksgiving, and a little bit of Christmas, but
That's crazy. It's
Generally
good
did
pacing.
that. Yeah. And Labor Day weekend, I did 8. I did 6, 2 each day. And then I had I paid 2 other agents to do 2 of them. So so let's call it like market research. I had a listing in 78757 that was like 1,800 square feet. We had it at like 795. But it was actually 2 listings. It was a duplex condo. So it was a duplex that could have been bought as a duplex, but each side, A and B, could be sold individually. So I had a lot of people coming in loving the price, loving the square footage, but wanted the backyard. So I wouldn't say like an older millennial is like 41, 42, like not first gen, but like born in 81,
Right.
And so we had not quite Gen Z, but maybe middle 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds coming in, wanting to live in the area, liked that price, but didn't want a shared wall, wanted a yard.
Yeah.
And so I kind of filed it away, and then I had another listing that was closer to that, but it was a townhome in 78757. And when I was doing my research for that, I was like, look at all these homes that they probably got for $250, $300, and then another $125 to $200 to fix, and they're selling for $6 or $7.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Trend. That's one of the trends that's happening. I expect to see more of that happening in 78757. Instead of tearing down the house, actually keeping it, remodeling it to the T's, and having, because in my opinion, and if you're a millennial out there, maybe I'm wrong, but most millennials, and this is a general statement, would rather have a 3 terabyte thumb drive the size of an eraser than like a 4-car garage where they can put a boat, a jet ski, a car, bikes, and all of those. Not that they don't like stuff, but technology.
I will
there's
agree.
a real
I agree.
technology.
I think, especially because I'm the youngest of millennials. I'm like 31.
Nice.
And I think the cutoff, I was born 94. The cutoff is 95. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And I feel like I don't need anything larger. I mean, even if I had a family, I don't think I would have a very large home.
And I don't think it's minimalist. Like, I wouldn't describe millennials, because I'm a Gen X, as minimalist. You guys like your stuff, It's just, I think, like, I always wondered why my generation was called Gen X. And I just kind of and I don't know why, other than to say, well, I spent half my life with a corded phone and the rest of my life with a cell phone.
Yeah.
I spent half my life with a computer that took, like you turned it on and went somewhere for 20 minutes and then came back and started, working. And you better save every 5 minutes because there wasn't an
because it would go away. See, that wasn't my situation. My situation was it was pretty much my whole life. I had computers, I had phones, pretty much my entire life.
So we were the 1
Yeah.
foot in this side, 1 foot in the other, right? So,
Yeah.
So I can see why millennials are like, I don't need a boat. I'll rent one.
Yeah.
I don't need a place for one.
Yeah.
Oh, my buddy has one.
But what do you think that translates? Because you guys have seen,
I just think millennials spend money in different areas.
like what?
Oh, man. Well, technology for one. I think a lot of, and I don't mind saying this, I think the X generation was a lot of power drinking, And I'm not
Power drink. What do you mean by that?
like drink till you can't walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't think millennials are doing that?
No, I think some of them, but I just think the majority.
Maybe not as
of them,
much.
I just think as a whole, group, they just may, and it's a slowdown because I think White Claw is probably more of a Gen Z drink, right? And so like White Claw is like 2% alcohol or something.
Yeah.
So, and I don't drink anymore, but I mean, I would have drank 24 of those at 2%. Are you crazy?
Yeah. What do you think about Gen Z? Do you have a lot of exposure to that?
Man, I think I'm really interested to see how Gen Z is going to change the economy.
Well, what's interesting to me has been, again, as a millennial, Gen Z is whatever I said. Like, I have had computers my whole life. they've had social media their whole life. They've had like the end game of internet, as far as I can tell, their whole life, which is crazier. Because I at least had like echoes from a past in my early childhood, but they didn't have that shit at all.
That's right. And I think, I keep telling my wife, I'm like, our grandkids are going to be helping us, and they're going to be like, "You're still using the internet." Like, that's what they're going to say. Like, it's like a check. It's going to be like a checkbook.
That's so
What's a checkbook,
funny.
Yeah,
you're
like,
using
well,
Excel. What are you doing?
Works,
You're on Microsoft Word. Why?
Be on my Chromebook. This Chromebook, I got it.
Yeah. I know. I've already think that with ChatGPT, I'm like, this is something that kids are growing up with, which is freaking nuts. Like, I would have killed to have ChatGPT in college, high school. You could take a photo of your packet at school and upload it to ChatGPT and say, answer all this shit for me. I don't want to do this. And it would just do it. And I remember when I was in school, they would give me a packet and they'd say, take this home and fill it out. It's going to take you an hour. And I hated that shit. It sucked. It was a waste of time. And now these kids they have a tool to just say, no, we're not going to do that. You have to give us something more engaging to do. Otherwise, we're just going to cheat. And I think that's fantastic.
I do too. I think AI is going to, it's going to change a lot of things.
Yes.
Here's the next, in my opinion, the next genius is going to be and it could be somebody that's not a millennial or a Gen Z or a beta. Maybe it's a beta. And I shouldn't say the next genius, but the next wave is going to be creating the capacity to handle that kind of computing power in a really tight, on your computer, right? So like, one of the reasons, like, we've had AI for a long time. We just didn't have the computing power to do it, right? Because it needs so much. And so I don't know the names of the companies. I researched them last year, but there are companies that all they're doing is building warehouses of filled with, I think it's either servers or computers, so they can actually do these computations, so that all this stuff can be done really quickly.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of power, a lot of other things to get
You heard of
done.
quantum computers?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that might be it. It's crazy what the quantum computer, that's actually something I am heavily invested in, because I think that's going to be like the next Bitcoin, the next everything is going to be quantum. Because every computer runs on a factor of ones and zeros.
Right.
But a quantum computer doesn't need to run on that 1 and 0. So, and if you think about it, if you're coming up with an equation, it's a lot of ones and a lot of zeros and a lot of computation to go over thousands and thousands of ones and zeros to make that.
Yeah.
But a quantum computer is both a 1 and a 0 simultaneously. So it reduces the factor of computations that need to be done by like tenfold or something. So it can do stuff. What's that?
How much are they?
Oh, well, they're stupid expensive. Because, well, the only way to do it is you have to have a cold storage unit to put the server in to actually get it to a quantum state like that.
Wow.
So only Google and a couple other companies have quantum computers right now, and they're incredible. They do so well, but in order to create an environment where it operates efficiently is insanely, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's extremely expensive, yeah. Because it needs to be on the Kelvin scale, like near zero, like whatever absolute zero freezing is, it needs to be as close to that as possible to reach that computation level. But once you get there, it's just, you could do anything. You could put anything in there and it will calculate it.
Wow.
But once you we're not quite there yet to where that thing is kind of running everything. But once you start putting everything that we have, any question we have, any sort of computation, you could toss it into that machine and it will give you an answer without overloading like any other computer we have.
Yeah.
But
Crazy.
that's the next big one where I'm like, this is going to pop off one day. And
It's just going to take one guy to be like, or one girl, one woman.
One
hey,
A.
This is how we do it.
yeah, one girl too.
Either one.
Yeah. But that's going to be, I think, a generation after Alpha even. I mean, but it's interesting. And then, but I like the conversation about the amount of space that we take. I think it also has something to do with if you look at Japan or like any sort of hyper modern society, generally speaking, they have less space. They just take less space. And I think America has still, like the older generations at least, still have this idea of, no, you need to take as much space. Yeah. You need a lot of space. That's what you want.
You want a 3,800 square feet.
You want a lot of space.
Yeah.
But I think that's being lost on every newer generation.
Well, and I think, and we think about, in my mind, when I think about the boomers, like they went somewhere. They went to Hawaii or they went to Italy. And I'm not saying that millennials or Gen Z don't do that, but they can go there every day if they want to on their phone. So there's less of a...
there's less of a drive. That's interesting. You think that's a big impact?
I just think it's a difference. Go get a bunch of stuff, bring it home. Go to Italy and buy things and bring it home. Go to Hawaii, buy things and bring them home. Whereas Gen Zers can like look at it on their phone and in a way own it.
Yeah.
What were those things?
That almost seems like a way that the souvenir business is going out. Is because I do agree with you. I think boomers typically would be more inclined to buy a souvenir, whereas young people, they don't really care about that. They care more about the profile that they have online.
Look at the picture of me standing in front of the thing. Bam, go back
look
to
at
the
this
terabyte.
story I took of me with the location on it. That, to me, is more valuable than some knickknack I bought in some bullshit store.
And let me say, and I don't want to make it seem like those two generations are disjointed.
Yeah.
Because we're all human. I remember sitting in my grandparents' house, and every couple of years, we would just watch them go through all of their slide decks of when they went here, when they went there, and it was like the same story.
And my parents do that.
You spit your mouth up, and you did this.
Yeah.
But it was so great to see all that stuff. And so that draw to have a picture, it exists in both. Right.
But that exists today. But what's interesting is what you say is exactly what my parents do. My parents, they don't post it online in a way of like, oh, you'll see it online. They go, hey, now that everyone's here for dinner, let's go through some photos. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we have a slideshow. We have a PowerPoint that we made of a vacation. But a millennial would never do. A millennial's like, it's all online. Like you would see it just scrolling.
Or you'd have it on your TV just like...
Yeah, like a real thing.
Yeah.
That is a very millennial thing, and I think that would probably be the same with Gen Z and even Gen Alpha. But that is a disconnect that happened between the older generations and now. I would never do that. I would just post it online.
Well, and everybody's already seen it.
Yeah.
You had to go to that person's house to see the pictures.
A million of other people have probably done the same. Yeah.
So,
and that does kind of bring a taste down on traveling. But
I think.
But I still think millennials travel a lot.
I wouldn't put I think traveling is something that's in you or it's not, and I mean that like. It's an economic thing as well.
True.
Like some people don't have the means to do it, but let's just say if you took 20 people that had the means to do it, some of them was like, I don't know.
Do you like traveling?
I never had the means to travel. In fact, I think about this now.
But do you care to?
Oh yeah. We're gonna go to Hawaii here pretty soon. I think we're gonna. I let my wife do all that stuff. But I was just always so work oriented. I remember I had girlfriends who were like, "Let's go on a cruise to,"
And you're like, "No."
I'm like, "I got to work on Saturday. What are you talking about?
I got plans."
And she's like, "Why don't you like to have fun?" And I'm just like, and I think about that. I'm like, we probably would have had a blast. In my 20s on a, going to Cancun on a cruise.
It would have been awesome.
Would have been amazing.
A little booze cruise.
Yeah.
I have buddies that do that. They do like 20, like the cruises where it's just all like a booze cruise. Like it's literally like no kids. Everyone is here to get absolutely slaughtered by alcohol.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't fall off the boat.
And that's the only thing you got to worry about, really, is don't, like the things that they were telling me that they were doing on that boat. I was like, I can't believe they didn't kick you off the boat. They're in costumes, yelling at a pool, throwing beer at each other. And they're like, all right, everyone be cool. And it's like, it's a booze cruise. So everyone's just rowdy, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy.
But I always think I'm a person that just had no desire to travel. I just don't really care to travel too much.
I think for me right now, moving the family is going by myself, no big deal.
That's tough. Yeah.
But the whole family dynamic, when you have kids, you get one shot. And what I mean by that is if you go to a place you've never been and you and your wife think it's cool and you decide to like go to the store and leave your kids at the place, hotel, whatever, and you come back and they're not there, there's your shot. Right? Like, where are they? Where they were supposed to be here. Like, you only get one shot. There are no do-overs. You know what I mean? And they could just be like getting ice cream at the bar or something, but they're not there. I guarantee you that is the worst feeling you'll ever feel in your life.
That's so...
They're supposed to be here. They're not here.
Now you panic.
Now you have to remain calm.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can, so like...
But you're freaking the
But you're
fuck out.
freaking out.
Yeah.
They could be in Tahiti for all you know.
Yeah,
Who knows what happened? So that's what I mean by, like, it's constant, like, where
it's
are you
scary
going?
to
What are you
take them.
doing?
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. I just want to walk around the beach. At 11 at night, Dad, it's fine. Like, no, it's not cool.
Well, how old are your kids?
14 and 9.
Yeah, that's the age, though. 14 is the age where they're like, I want to start doing stuff on my own.
Really formed their own reality.
Yeah,
So as I tell my wife, I say, we're just their consultant.
Yeah.
Right now. We can only consult them. They're going to, to a point. Like, when we say no, it's no. And
Right.
But in general, we want them to...
I would say the consulting starts. Like, there's some autonomy that you've given them now, but so now you kind of like taking, like you said, a more consultative role. There's still some heavy parent lines that they can't cross.
Exactly. So I always use this kind of like analogy or this thing that we've done in the past. So we rarely, and this is not a slam on parents who do have this. We rarely have soda in the house. Like Dr. Pepper, Cokes.
Parents are the same. I don't like soda. Yeah.
Rarely have it in the house. Now, if we go out and they want to get a Dr. Pepper, we're not like, no, can't have soda.
Right.
We just say, yeah, sure. But we just don't keep it in the house because it's for a lot of health reasons, really. But it's the first thing they'll drink.
Right.
So it's like
my parents were the same.
But we don't. So we give it to them. We just don't give it to them openly and freely in our own house. Does that make sense? So we don't hold them back from it.
And are they asking for it now?
I mean, when we go out, they don't ask for us to get it at home. Every once in a while, I'll grab like the minis or something. But here's what I don't like is every time I'm pouring one of those out, all I hear is nickels and dimes and quarters hitting the sink. And I'm
I agree.
Who didn't drink this?
Yeah.
Like one sip, put it down, get another one.
Like a beer at a party or something.
Yeah.
That's the worst when you throw a party and they're just
wasteful.
pouring beers out. Like, what the hell was this about?
Wasteful. So I can't. And even we do have a lot of soda water. I drink soda water all the time.
You mean like a Topo Chico?
Topo would be a mineral water, more like a LaCroix.
Oh, okay.
Or a Waterloo, something like that.
I've never been a fan of those. To me, that also annoys me financially. It's like I'm paying an extra $1 just to have a fizz.
Yeah, well, no,
you know what I mean?
Topo Chico has minerals in it, so I would call it a mineral water.
Okay.
But I'm with you, and so even then, like I have just gravitated towards the HEB unflavored soda water because all that's in it is carbonation and water. Everything else has a natural flavor, which I still don't know what that is, but it's not water.
Did you read the back of those things?
It just says natural flavor, so it's some sort of like it's some. There's a definition for it. It's like how if McDonald's is serving an all beef patty, how can 30% of it be soy? All beef patty, special sauce, lettuce.
Damn,
cheese,
that's
tomato.
like a riddle. How do they?
So easy.
Well, then what do they?
Blow your mind.
How do they do it? What's the rationale? How do they do that?
They own a company called All Beef.
Oh,
who makes the patties? So when I see natural
That is
flavors,
so
it might as well
fucked.
say cyanide.
So
You
they
know,
so
so they're not
containing
lying.
natural flavors. So really, that natural flavor should have an R next to it. Like this is actually a company, Natural Flavors.
Who knows what it
Oh
is?
my God!
I'm not saying
Selling
it's that
all
bad.
beef, the company all beef
beef
patties. That's so fucked.
I know. And even stuff that's like light, like a light drink, whatever it is. It just light could just mean that it's
You've seen those
light
Minute
in
Maids?
color, you know?
The Minute Maid one is always fucking great to make because it says Minute Maid made with 0% juice. It's like, what?
All concentrate.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell is this then?
I agree.
Like high fructose corn syrup.
I mean, I will say this about Trump. He did hire, what's his name? Kennedy.
JFK or RFK.
Yeah,
RFK.
to do the what's called and then we were talking about this earlier, so we can kind of get into it. Make
Maha.
Make America Healthy Again.
Oh yeah.
Maha. So
how do you think about him? Do you think he's been doing a pretty good job?
well, they've already
He gets kooky with some stuff.
they're all, I think to move the needle a little bit, you got to be
You gotta be kooky.
you can't be a little bit.
You gotta be all
Gotta
the
be
way.
extra.
Yeah,
Gotta
yeah.
be extra.
That's a good point.
Right.
I do
So-
like that. That is a
There's
good
just
point.
so much involved in this. Like Kellogg's, they make a special cereal for Americans because most of the other countries that they sell their cereal in have outlawed like 80% of the ingredients that go into our cereals,
Yeah.
right? And so like Europe, you can't sell the Captain Crunch that we get here. You can't
Right.
sell it over there. Because
This
of
is
the-
something where I was very happy with Trump about was putting RFK in. I think it was important to get someone to tackle this because it is a problem, and I think everyone can completely agree that our food is trash.
It's trash, and that's why I went carnivore.
Yeah.
Right? It's extremely. I wouldn't say it's controversial. We've been eating meat as humans for a long time. I know there's vegetarians out there.
It's interesting to me how understanding I am of both sides because the carnivore diet I do think is healthier. I do think will probably make you feel fantastic. I do see all the benefits there. But on the vegetarian side, I also see the argument of every day when you eat food, you are causing suffering. I see that as an argument. That's a valid argument.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a lot of us on this earth, humans,
Right.
and to feed us all, there's going to be some sort of
Death.
something has to. It's not to feed us all. It can't all be good.
Right.
Like, there's no magic food that like the elven bread. We take a little bite and I don't know if you remember.
Fantastic quote.
yeah.
Fantastic reference. Best reference so far. Being
So
talking about a carnivore diet,
you know,
the elven bread is not real.
exactly. So like
That's awesome.
Monocropping is horrible for the earth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Vegetarians would say, well, all the methane gas is horrible for the earth. Like that the cows poop or burp or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I think it's and I don't have any dislike or hate. My wife's a vegetarian. We were talking about it.
Man, that's a crazy dynamic. Does she get upset even kissing you sometimes? Just like, oh, you got meat in your mouth.
I just try to have fun with it.
Yeah.
My only request, because I don't do things inside my marriage that are unmarriage-like. Like I purposely don't touch other women,
Right.
unless it's a handshake or I know them and it's a hug or something like that. But
Right.
like if I don't know the woman, I'm not like, hey, how's it going?
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
it just leads to things that aren't
Of course.
positive for your marriage. Right.
Right.
I don't get women's phone numbers unless it's business.
Right.
There's nothing we could be talking about that would be positive for my marriage.
Right.
So when it comes to food, I just kind of do the same thing. Like my wife doesn't like meat. I usually cook it in an air fryer so that because she doesn't like the smell, I do that outside. Which, if I was grilling it, it would be outside also.
What do you do for fiber?
I guarantee you right now, if you were to look up fiber and looked up a study,
Yeah.
you'd have three groups, right? the group that got a lot of fiber, the group that got a little bit of fiber, and the group that got no fiber, right? And the first two groups would have a hard time, would say they had a hard time going to the bathroom. Fiber actually doesn't do what everybody says it does. It doesn't like help digestion, or maybe it's not digestion. It doesn't help you go to the bathroom.
What do you mean?
It constipates you. It doesn't do the other thing. I'm actually not concerned about getting any fiber at all. It doesn't.
So you don't feel like that impacts you at all?
No, I don't know. The only thing on carnivore, so there's no study on meat that, and they could do this, but they don't. Whoever the theys are, although the meat industry doesn't do this either. Why, I can't say, but there's never been a study on meat and all of the nutrients that you get out of it. Really, if you're just eating meat, the one thing that you're not going to get is vitamin C. So you have a risk of scurvy, right? Because you're not getting vitamin C. So I take, and let me be clear, when I say I'm on carnivore, I'm more of a more of a meat-based diet. Right now, I'm trying to control my high blood pressure, and I do that through my eating. And so
you'll eat a zucchini?
No, I mean,
so
well, I would eat so. I want to be as clear as I can.
Yeah.
And concise.
It just was a funny sentence. Is all. So you would eat a zucchini? No, I don't think I would.
So all the plants are carbs.
Yeah,
that's what they are. They're carbs.
Okay, yeah.
Whether they have nutrients in them or
there
not.
is nutrients. Yeah. But I got you.
They're carbs.
Yeah.
But you can get carbs from other places, right? Like watermelon or honey.
Okay.
And so that's what I gravitate towards. Now, honey's a little bit different because honey can be, everybody's like, oh, honey's really bad for you.
I don't agree with that.
I don't either. It's I think it's the only insect in the world that produces something that we eat a lot of. Like, you might be able to turn insects into a protein, but that insect doesn't produce something that we eat.
That we eat, like a byproduct, like milk or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but honey is honey, no glyphosates. So basically, like, how can I put this? How do bees make honey? Through pollen. They pollinate all of these crops. They do all of these things. People have said, and I believe it's probably true, if the bees die, we wouldn't die, but we'd be severely hampered if all the bees go away, right? So when a bee goes to get pollen off a flower that has been grown with pesticides and stuff like that, it transfers some of that to the honey. So there are a couple of different brands out there that you can buy that don't have that. Like, everything is controlled. The bees are I assume they're in a huge warehouse with all the flowers.
Right.
And they only pollinate those flowers, and that's it. But that's what you have to do, because there's really not a whole lot of places on Earth where pesticides aren't used.
Right.
In monocropping,
Well, they also say it's good for allergies to eat like the local honey. That's been a big one.
I could see that, yeah.
So your diet, beef, watermelon, honey, is that really as simple as that?
Right now, just beef.
So when you make lunch, it's just a piece of meat.
Yes. Yeah, 1 to 2 pounds.
Wow.
So 1 pound, I have a window between 12 and say, I kind of, it's one of those things, like, I'm rigid, but I'm still loose. So between 1 and 9 is when I eat.
What do you snack on?
I don't snack.
So you just have a pound of meat and then another pound of meat, and then that's it, lunch and dinner?
That's it. But part of getting your, and I want to touch on, because I did eat only vegetables for a few months to help with my blood pressure as well. So I did both.
And what happened there?
So when I did my deep dive on carnivore after I did my deep dive on being a vegan or vegetarian, the first two rules, coincidentally, are the same. And so this was in reference to getting my blood pressure down. The vegan doctor was like, no seed oils, no processed food. If you do the first one, you won't be doing the second one, because there's rarely any processed food out there that doesn't have a seed oil in it.
Right.
Canola oil or coconut oil or cacao, butter, any of that stuff. None of that. Can't have any seed oils. And that's the same rule with carnivore. Don't eat any of that stuff. So if you were to just do that and only eat vegetables or only eat meat, you're going to be healthier.
But the vegetables didn't work for you.
Well, I was hungry all the time.
Yeah.
Hungry all the time.
Yeah.
I get done eating, and then to eat a bowl of vegetables, it takes a long time, and then an hour later, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And so in the deep dive, what I found was, and I'm not saying being a vegetarian is not healthy. If that's what works for you, that's what works for you. So I'm not telling anybody not to do it, and I'm not telling people to do carnivore either.
Right.
With carnivore, I'm satiated longer, right? And so part of getting your blood pressure under control is your sleep, or getting healthy, period, is your sleep habits. So your body really wants to be on a schedule. And my wife says, oh, you're just getting old. I'm like, well, if I eat at 6 and I go to bed at 10, I'm probably not hungry at 10. If I stay up till 2 or 3 working or doing something, I'd be hungry. And I don't want to eat a hamburger. I would.
Yeah.
And I do. But that's when like the snacking happens.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just eat a little bit of this. I'll just have one chip or something like that.
So staying up late has also been a problem.
Well, I love staying up late. I'm a night owl.
Yeah, me too.
I do pretty well with 6 to 7 hours of sleep. 7 hours, I think, is really optimum for me to have decent health.
I get to I have to have 8. If I don't have 8, I'm off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just, but your body will want to wake up at a certain time. Right?
Yeah.
So my body wakes up at 6 in the morning. Even if I've been up at 3, I'll still kind of like,
Oh, wow.
And I still wake up, and then I either go back to bed or I sleep, or I actually get up. So I chose carnivore. The other thing was I didn't lose as much weight as I thought I would.
With carnivore.
No, with being a vegetarian. And I want to be clear, too, and be fair to all the vegetarians out there. It was hard doing only vegetables.
It's really hard to prepare all that, I'm assuming. What do you think was more expensive? I feel like it would be vegetarian.
If your body's going to adapt. And so this is what I would say. For me, going vegetarian was like starving yourself to lose weight. Right? Because you're counting calories, or you're orchestrating it in a way that your body is like. So I don't know that this is true. This is a theory that I've heard. And this is a carnivore theory. Is that when we were cave people, which wasn't that long ago, we generally ate meat. We tried to hunt and gather. But it's not gather and hunt. It's hunt and gather. And that's a science thing, so you could probably interchange them. Essentially, though, the goal was to get meat and organs and just kill something and eat it. Bring it back, we all eat. In the winter, it's hard to do that. So that's when we gather. And so this theory, again, it's not mine, but I think for me, I felt like, and I heard this after I did the vegetarian, when you're just eating vegetables, your body's like, dang, there's not a whole lot to eat out here. Winter must be coming. Let's pack on the fat, because it's going to get lean with food.
Oh, you think that your body is going over that reaction?
To doing it, right? And there are some studies out there. I could, I was listening to this guy, Paul Saladino, he's a meat-based eater. He was talking to another doctor, and they proved this. They brought up this study where it kind of shows this, where the study was to do something else, but part of the data showed that they were putting on weight eating vegetables essentially during this certain time. And so what I do know is that your body is going to get energy from carbs or fat, one of the two. And if you're not eating any carbs,
Yeah.
start eating fat. I went from 195 to 169 in 4 months, and I didn't work out. I worked out twice, and I got hurt both times because
On vegetables or on
carnivore.
carnivore?
Yeah. So I didn't work out, and I shed all
Have
this weight.
have you felt different just in other ways?
I think when you change your diet, I think things are going to change.
Yeah.
For you, because you're feeding your body and your brain different, materials.
But like your thought processes haven't changed or anything. Because some people say they go carnivore and they feel sharper, they feel more on top, they feel like maybe their testosterone levels are higher.
Yeah.
You hear stories like that.
I mean, I want to say yes to that question, but I didn't feel. For me, I think I was so hungry. Like when I was on just eating vegetables, my thoughts were like, "When am I going to eat again?" Not like, "All right, let's get down to business on this buyer's
Right.
Is it worth 500,000? Right, let's pull in all this data and that.
It almost seems like you're practically carnivore, just because it's so easy to be like food done, move on.
And you know what? That it's easy for me. There was this movie called The Fly, and they made a remake of it.
Oh, with Goldblum or
with Goldblum.
Yeah, Goldblum. Yeah.
Yeah, in the movie, and I remember watching this when I was a little kid, and I was like, "Man, that's cool. I think I'm going to do that." So I still do this with my clothes. And there's a scene in the movie where the love interest and him are looking at his closet, and in the movie he wears the same stuff through the whole movie.
Right.
Beige jacket, a blue shirt, beige khakis, and the same shoes, brown shoes.
Right.
And they go into his closet, and that's all he has. He has like 10 jackets, 10 blue shirts, 10 khaki pants.
But they were making fun of him in that movie.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
But you were like genius.
I was like, yes. So I roll with that now. I'm like, you will rarely see me in print. Do you know what I mean? Like a shirt that's got like different stuff on it. But you'll see me in a black shirt because black shirts never go out of style.
Man, I think I was talking about this with someone else today or the other day too. I think that's just kind of how guys are in general. I think guys are very practicality, and I think that says a lot about you going carnivore and maybe your wife being a vegetarian. It's about practicality.
Well,
practically, it seems so easy to be like, piece of meat, eat it, move on. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about anything else. The hardest part of a meal, honestly, is preparing vegetables and anything else.
Yeah.
The meat is just, it's cooked, it's good, it's ready to go.
Salt.
But when you get vegetables going, you have to prepare, it's a whole process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Steam them, you got to blend them up.
It's a whole thing, and it's like, that's a pain in the butt. You know?
I mean, it's still hard. Like my wife still comes home with 12 donuts.
Oh, dude, that makes her deal sound way better.
She'll come back with 12 packs of donuts, chocolate bars, all this stuff. I'm like, that. So that's why. So in my deep dive and all this stuff.
Damn, saying goodbye to a donut would be tough. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I know. There was. Well, it's only temporary. My blood pressure's coming down. People always say, well, your LDL is going to be out of this roof.
What's LDL?
LDL cholesterol is traditionally what everybody says. If you have high LDL, so it's.
How do you balance all this shit though? Like they didn't do this. Caveman didn't do this. You know.
So here's the thing. So I don't want to call. Okay. When they took their readings, they being the doctors, when they see high LDL, they see heart disease, right? There have been more studies on LDL, and there are a lot of people walking around with high LDL. And
which is cholesterol.
Which is cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. And but they don't have plaque in their heart. Right? And so what a further deep dive from other doctors, they're starting to see that high LDL isn't necessarily bad. Too much LDL can be bad. It shows up in different ways. And I don't want to get sidetracked. What makes LDL bad for you is what I've been researched as linoleic acid. Linoleic acid we get naturally, but in really small amounts. It's in all the seed oils. So vegetable oil, canola, olive oil, it's in all of that. And so, like, let's take...
so, again, it's too much seed oil is causing this.
So, the LDL just kind of, like, travels around, drops stuff off. Our brain is made up of, I think, 35% LDL cholesterol. Our brain needs so much cholesterol, LDL, that it makes it, right? So the LDL is just going everywhere. It's like a bus. It drops stuff off. It gets to the heart. It has that linoleic acid in there. The linoleic acid turns it into plaque. Now you have this buildup, and that's it. There's another study that shows heart disease in America, and it coincides with all of the oils like taking effect. I think it was like after World War I. I think they had come up with this oil that they were using to grease the tank tracks, right?
And they were using that on food?
I believe that was canola oil. Canola oil is what they were using that for. But then after the war, they had so much of this, they were like, how do we...
Wait, what?
Do with
so
this
they were
stuff?
using this shit on tanks, and they were like,
They
dang, we got
modified it
so
a little
much...
bit, and then
we can throw it in food.
And so
Can I
then
look that up? Is that real?
They made these oils, and they gave them to people. And right about the time these oils became very popular, you can see that heart disease went up. I know we're recording this, so I'll send you the graph.
Yeah.
If you have to watch it. If you go to, and we're plugging somebody else here, but if you go to Rogan, Paul Saladino on Rogan, he'll take you through all of it.
Paul Saladino on Rogan.
And so, and that graph will be there. So back in the early 1900s and the 1800s, we smoked more.
Yeah, you're right. Here it is.
We drank more.
Yeah.
We smoked. We drank more. We worked out less. Although that one I think is a little different because a lot of people had laborious jobs. Majority of people back there
I think
weren't
people
just
in general,
sitting typing.
They were moving around a lot more.
So I would say workout, let's call it a break even. Right?
Yeah.
But now, you think about now, we work out more. We don't smoke. We don't drink as much. Oh, the other part of the other thing is they ate a lot of red meat back then. We eat less red meat. We don't smoke. We work out more. We don't drink as much.
Well, I've heard smoking increases your testosterone.
85% of the population has some sort of heart, like not necessarily high blood pressure, but there's something going on there.
But couldn't it have been true that happened back then, but we just didn't know?
Well, they also track like who had cardiac arrest as well. And that was pretty it was a rare thing. And then all this starts going
But
up.
But also, I mean, here's the thing, the argument against even the caveman thing too, is to me, it seems like we're idolizing people in the way that the diet was in the natural diet when we were out in the world, we idolize that diet. But in reality, nobody lived to be past 40 years old back then.
That's true. I don't, and I think we can't say, was it because of their diet or is it because they were the diet, right? Did something eat them or was it another tribe coming through?
Another tribe, war, sickness, they didn't have antibiotics or anything like that. So if you even got diarrhea, you're done.
Yeah.
But I do think that kind of matters. I think it matters in the sense that now that we're living for a long time for the first time, we're all like, oh, it's because of this, because of that. I mean, I've heard of Chinese people who smoke every day in their life and they live to be 120.
Yeah,
so,
I think everybody's the same and it's like a leaf on a tree.
True.
Right? They're all the same.
Snowflakes. Yeah. Everyone's a little different. But I think, I don't know, I think right now there's a lot of, because living this long is such a new phenomenon, there's a lot of research into like, oh, this is right, this is right, this is right, this is right. But nobody has really honed it down in a way that we can really tell this is what's making people live longer and this isn't.
There are those guys out there that are like, I'm going to live to be 400. And I'm like, man, why?
That's crazy.
Why? Not that I want to die anytime soon.
You see those guys who are like weightlifting in their 90s and shit?
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I will be doing that, but I will be working out in my 90s.
Working out definitely seems to help. And that's the big common one is even for, like I said, the Chinese woman who smoked her entire life and she is 120, generally speaking, they're moving a lot.
Yeah.
They're always walking somewhere.
Doing
they're
Tai Chi or something.
Something.
Yeah.
My dad is 72. He looks fantastic. And it's because he works out a lot.
There you go. I heard this early on, and this was, take it with a grain of salt. It was on NPR. And when I say early on, like, say, the late 90s, early 2000s. And the person was saying, you'd be healthier if you smoke, drank, did illicit drugs, and worked out than if you didn't do any of it. Like if you just didn't work out, didn't smoke, didn't smoke pot or snort coke or do any of that stuff.
But do you think working out is more important than eating right? I think for for age, I think working out is more important.
Well, I think it's kind of one of those things like when you're younger, you can outwork your diet, meaning you can eat whatever you want.
Yeah.
Because your metabolism is so fast.
And
working out, it's amazing. But inevitably, you can't keep your metabolism at that level. That's just our bodies. They start to slow down. Now, if everybody's here and your metabolism here, right, is here in your 50s. So let's say in your 20s, your metabolism is here.
Yeah.
In your 60s, it's here.
Right.
You're never getting back up there. You might be able to push it up a little bit, but
you got to work out.
You're not getting back to what you were in your 20s.
Right,
That's why you have your prime,
Your prime.
And that could be, physically, that's usually, depending on the sport, 20s or 30s.
How old are you?
52.
52. When did you feel it was like that was the prime? When did you think you felt the best? Because some dudes say 40. Some people say like 20 if they're athletes,
It depends on the sport. So like a lot of triathletes, their prime I don't know if this is still true. It is their 30s. It's their early 30s because their body adapts to the training, what it's going to do on game day, all of those things.
Their body knows the moves and the routines.
And it takes a while for it to get used to all of that and then really perform.
Right.
So it's their mid-30s. Honestly, like, I don't think of it as this is like my body doesn't perform the way that it used to because of injury and stuff like that. But I still feel like the best is ahead of me. Like, I don't think about like, oh man, I wish I would have done this when I was 20.
That's good. That's healthy.
Do it because
it's
gone. It's like, it is what it is.
Yeah, that would be shitty.
Yeah, it's just, you can't beat yourself up like that. But what can I do now? Like when I first started triathlons, I wanted to go to Kona, which is the big, if you're in triathlons, that's the race everybody wants to get into.
Yeah.
I have another friend who...
Did you do the one here?
I have not. I've done triathlons here. I just haven't done a full, like, I've done a sprint and an Olympic, but I haven't done the full, 3-mile swim, 110-mile bike ride, and a marathon. I haven't done that one yet, but that's Kona. So you have to do that to get in, and you have to qualify to get in. You just don't like pay your ticket and you're in. And so my other buddy who's been working really hard and done really well, he did his last triathlon, and he looked at his time and he's like, man, he's 50, and he's like, if I was 72, I'd make Kona with this time. So, but you know what? I just don't think about it like that. Like, my mindset isn't that it's impossible.
Right.
Like, it's possible. I have another friend who does cycling, and he's like, I'm never gonna. There's this guy that he's 54 now, and really he tried to go pro, but cycling is one of those sports that, like, if you're not doing something to get ahead,
you're not doping, you're not. Yeah,
you're not trying.
Yeah.
Right?
I was actually rewatching all the Armstrong. all the Armstrong scandal, and I was rewatching all of it recently, going like, it's pretty funny. There was a great bit that Bill Burr had where he was talking. He's like, the thing about cycling is our roided up guy beat everybody else's roided up guy.
Exactly.
So everyone's all complaining like this guy broke the law, and it's like, dude, everybody's
doing it.
Everybody, the top like 30 people were all doing it. So it's like, what do you talk? And the shit they do is crazy. They had like blood that they would keep in freezers.
Yeah.
And every time they were about to do a race, they would change out their blood so that they have a lot of oxygen in it.
Their bus would break down between finish line and home base, or like they go from the home base to give blood, and their bus would break down. They'd all get transfusion, like amazing stuff.
The amount of biohacking to do that sport that's where I would be like, I'm out. I could never do that.
Okay, so my friend, he's like, I just don't know if I can beat this guy, And I was like, you gotta go. You gotta be in the race. And he was like, I don't know. I'm like, you never know. This guy could not show up.
Yeah.
He could get sick. And then you don't go because you're a pussy, right? And then some other guy that you dust every single week
You'd
wins
rather lose to that guy than have never tried at all.
And that's what actually happened. The guy didn't show up to one race.
Oh, wow.
He won. He's got a medal now and stuff.
That's amazing. That's good.
So you just never know. I don't think about, my goal is still to do Kona. And that's why I'm doing all these other things. And I'm going to get back into racing form. And
you done a marathon before?
Yeah, I've done a couple marathons. Yeah. 100 miles on the bike a couple times.
God, dude.
The swimming is, I was on a swim team.
What's the motivation? I've never been motivated to do anything like that.
I think, I played sports in high school, and when you're in high school, it's really the only time that it's free. There's competition, and it's organized. The only other time you can get all of those things is if you go to college or you turn pro or amateur in something, right? So, I probably was in the wrong sports, but when I got out of high school, I was like, I still like working out. I still like doing all this stuff. I can't play football or run track because, I'm not big enough. I'm not fast enough. Okay, well, what else can I do? So then I just kept running. I kept lifting weights, and then I was like, you know what? I used to always watch the Kona triathlon on TV. And so I was like, I'm going to do a triathlon. Why not? So then I trained for it. But back then my training wasn't like, I want to be on the podium. I want to get first, second, or third. Mine was just like, I'm not making a bunch of money, any money. In fact, I'm losing money by doing all this training, buying a bike, getting all the equipment, the time, all of that stuff. So I should be having fun.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's how I looked at it. Transition is a place where you go from swim to bike and then bike to run. And when I did my first triathlon, I did my first Olympic, I spent 20 minutes between swim and bike. I was the last out of the water, right? Like waves passed me. So they let a group go, they let another group go every 2 minutes. And I had 2 waves pass me on the swim. And so 20 minutes is like what other athletes, they spend 5 minutes total. But in those, so 2.5 minutes, and they're gone. And I was toweling off, doing my thing. Because it wasn't.
You just weren't in it.
Well, no,
for
I
that.
just wasn't. Yeah,
you weren't in it for that.
And I still finished top 15% on my, I got out of the water last.
Yeah.
And I'm a decent cyclist.
Well, you could make up a lot of ground on bike if that's.
It's about the run.
Is it really about the run?
It's about the run. Yeah, because it's the last thing. And so I'm a strong runner. And so I got dusted by all the swimmers. I got dusted by a lot of the cyclists. And neither of those 2 groups like to run. So when we get into the run,
it also might be like a rabbit hare, or the hare and the turtle kind of thing. Because at the end, if you have a nice pace and they're all they've dusted out, they've put everything into the first 2.
Well, and I hit my numbers. I knew my swim was going to be this. I trained for this. My bike was going to be this. my run was going to be these numbers.
God, that would feel so shitty to be.
So I hit those numbers.
To be running like 2 miles an hour, and then you see the guy that just got torched in the swim run by you. Like,
what's up, bro? So,
you suck.
So that's what happens. So I don't want to sit here and I want to be respectful for all the people that are doing triathlons. That put everything into it. I may never reach Kona. Because of my times or whatever it is. I say that, but I also say like I'm going to reach Kona.
Yeah. Where is it at?
It's in Hawaii.
Okay.
Kona,
Well, you're
Hawaii.
going there soon, right?
I think we're going to go to Maui, not the Big Island. So, but I'm going to train. I think there's two things I always talk about or I mention. One with LDL cholesterol, because everybody is like, your LDL, it's going to be out of the roof. And the more I go into it, it's going to be, so high. The more I dive into it, and the more studies I read, LDL cholesterol is kind of like, okay, I can prove to you that at one time the world was flat. We all know the world's round right now, but at one time it was flat. How can I prove that?
Oof.
It's easy. So easy. Because everybody fucking believed it. And if you believed anything else and said it, you could be murdered, right? Everybody in the world thought the world was flat. So
right.
It was. Just like everybody in the world thinks that LDL cholesterol is the cause of all heart disease.
And just because that's what everyone's believing, you can pass that off?
Yeah. It's like when, I have doctors that have told me there's no such thing as hereditary heart disease or genetic heart disease. But that's brought up all the time. And I'm not slamming doctors. There's a lot of doctors out there. They're trying to do their best. They're inside the box of standard care, right? So if they give care outside that box and that person dies, they can be sued. They went to school for 20 years. They need to feed their families too. They're trying to do the right thing. I just prefer not to take the pills. So there's a lot of that going on where people believe it, and so that makes it true.
Yeah.
Even when
it's not,
or it's not. The other thing is, and this is kind of like with triathlons in golf, because I feel like I have another goal. I'm going to shoot a 69 in golf.
Nice.
And when I say that in the club, people look at me and they're like, this guy, like they expect to see somebody other than me standing there, right?
Right.
Like physique wise and all that. And so
look at John Daly. I mean, dude's a legend.
Yeah.
And he's not great looking.
Well, so I think the thing with golf and a lot of other sports as well is people are told, triathlons as well, they're told that it's hard. And they believe that. You'll never. Because, look, he could do it, and he's much better than you.
Right.
And
that's what everyone says until someone does it.
Well, and so I equate it to like an elephant. Elephants have really good memories. And so you take a baby elephant, and you tie them to a stake and put that stake in the ground. They can't pull it out. 20 years later, when that elephant could easily pull that stake out, they won't, because they tried one time, and they remember that they couldn't.
Remember that they can't.
So if you want to believe that you can't, guess what? You won't. And so, and especially with golf too. Golf was like, I picked the lock with golf. Like I had never shot in the 80s, always shot in the 90s. And then I went to a course. I played it on Saturday with a group of people. And then Sunday, a group of people, different group was like, let's play Kaiser. The course I had just played, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Wow, I love Kaiser.
Yeah, played Kaiser. Played pretty good, still low 90s. Then on Monday, my buddies from work like, we got a tee time for 4 at Kaiser. You want to go? And I was like, I'm fucking ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So we went out there. I didn't tell them I'd played the course already, 2 times in a row. I didn't have any beer. I didn't plan on shooting a 79, but I did.
Oh, nice.
I had never shot in the 80s, went right down to 79. And I had a in the water bogey.
Ooh.
Yeah, number 10.
The one that's at the little pool.
Well, yeah, number 10. It's a dog left. It plays like a 5, like a par 5, and
trying to remember.
I hit
10,
this just beautiful drive. Like, oh my gosh, I'm birdieing this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then I hit it like the holes here. I hit it that way.
Oh, I remember
into
that one. That's
water.
the
I was
par
like,
5 with the water on the left, right?
It's a 4.
Par
Maybe,
4.
Maybe they've made it a 5.
And there's
then
a sand trap like right over the water that you could land in. Yeah, I do remember this one.
Oh my gosh, I love that hole. And and I was like so pissed, and I wanted to break my club over my knee, and I just said, "That's it. I'm not playing like that today. That's not happening." Took my time, 79, and so when I say 69, people think you have to average like 75. And you have this day where you shoot, or 72.
Like, no, you could just have a good.
Just have one good.
You could have a
day,
good
dude.
day,
Just
man.
Go out
just
there
a
and the
day
fucking
where
sun is
everything
shining on
is
your
just
ass, baby.
lining the fuck up.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. And so, well, when will that day happen? It'll happen a day when I've practiced for a whole year and I've played, and then and I say, well, look at you. You show up 20 minutes before your tee time with a 12-pack. And then complain that you had a bad round. Like,
yeah.
What do professionals do that?
No,
they show up like 5 hours.
But I think it's because everybody wants to be John Daly.
Yeah,
but they don't realize that they need to work like
the
Tiger
dude's
Woods.
talented, right?
Yeah,
the guy didn't
John
reach his
Daly
potential.
is insanely talented.
Yes, he's the outlier.
But you have to be like a Tiger Woods. He works for it every day. He gets out there and grinds every day. He's not just born with it, you know. But I think we idolize the guy that was born with it. That's the thing.
We all want to work. Well, maybe not all of us. I think we all want to be good at something,
right?
Whatever that is. And there's people that are like, yeah, everybody's good at something. I agree with that. Just some things are more profitable than others.
That's also true. Some people are really good at something that's actually going to make them money. Yeah.
And then there's some people that aren't good. I mean, I wouldn't say there are people that choose to do something and become good at it. I was having a conversation on one of my work calls this morning, and he was talking. The teacher was talking about his just his life and work ethic and all that stuff. And he's like, "What do you all think?" And so I said, "Look, I replaced work hard with dedication, because to me, working hard starts with motivation. You're motivated, right? And then motivation kind of fleeting.
Goes away.
It just goes away, and then you either continue to work hard or you don't.
Right.
But the continue to work hard is dedication.
Well, this does actually sound like Joe Rogan, because he does have this on his show. He goes, what does he say? He says,
he's got the general, and
he says, "Fuck your motivation."
Yeah, exactly.
It's about discipline. You need discipline. You need to wake up every day and say, "This is who I am. This is what I'm doing, and this is what it is."
That's it.
And
discipline.
But I think that initial burst of motivation is what is needed, and then there's like a ghost of that motivation that lives in you that tells you that your discipline is worth it.
This is why you're doing it. Yeah,
your discipline is worth it. But I do believe that that's probably the biggest issue that most people have, is that they are fueled by motivation, and then when they don't get something, they're like, "Well, what the hell happened?" It's like, well, you didn't commit enough. It's more about the time in the game. It's just like real estate.
Yeah,
it's more about your time in the game than it is.
You have to have than getting it, like hitting one deal. You know?
Yeah, it's about consistency.
Yeah,
more than anything else. And that's literally everything. Everything is consistency. You can't just see results doing something one time.
There is something that came to me, and I started doing it. And it last year I was one of the realtors that did not have a good year last year. I didn't have a horrible year, but it was closer to horrible than good. Money wise, how many deals I did, and just how it went. And then during the year, I got this. My brother sent me this YouTube video of this guy talking, and the name of the video is "Act Like You're Building an Empire." And the theory, the first 44 minutes of it is basically like, this is what's happening. And then the next 45 minutes is, this is what you do to make everything you desire come to you. So the theory is that, what he's saying is that everything you desire in the world, Lambo, Rari, 69 in golf, a deal for $1 million, $2 million, anything that you desire, the universe is trying to bring it to you. It's trying to give it to you. This is kind of like it bleeds into like we're in a matrix, right? Like all this is a matrix. And there's another book called My Big Fat Toe or My Big Toe or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard of this one.
If you read that, it's all kind of similar. But what this guy is saying is that we're taught to basically swim upstream like a salmon to get what we want. We got to work hard. We got to just keep working hard. And then eventually, if you do enough hard work, you get what you want. And what he's saying is the way the universe works is the complete opposite of that. You have to know that you're going to get it, that you've got it. Like if I go over there and turn the light off, do I try to know that the light will go off? No, I know it will. I flip the switch, it goes off. If I want to turn it on, I turn it on. I already know it. I'm living in the knowing part of it, right? So if you want something, you're like, man, I want this deal or I want this thing. That energy, the universe thinks that you already have it. So it doesn't come to you. I have another friend. I won't mention his name. Last year, he didn't have a good year either. He's a lender and a realtor, and he just was struggling. And we were both, struggling together. He was like really working hard to get these deals, wanting it really bad. I want it so bad. Finally, he was like, he couldn't get a lending job, and he couldn't find any clients, buy or sell or rent. And the ones he did weren't ready, and it just nothing was working out. Finally said, fuck it. I'm getting out of real estate. I'm not going to do lending. I'm not going to do any deals. Going to get a job at Home Depot.
Right.
He told me that on a Wednesday. Like, he let it go. Stopped wanting all this shit. And Thursday, he called me. He's like, dude, I just got a job offer from this lending company.
That's just how everything works.
He stopped wanting it, and he allowed the universe to just give it to him. Right?
I feel like a lot of that has been happening in my life, too. Like, last year, I was struggling with lending. And I was like, I think I'm going to take a break. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to get into comedy. I'm going to start doing stuff that I like doing.
Yeah.
And what happened? The moment I start doing these other things that I like doing, I started getting deals.
You get super busy with this other thing.
I started getting lending deals. And I was like, why? What? Like, what? And I knew a part of me was like, I think I know what it was. I think a part of me was, I like mortgage. I do think it's a great thing that I am involved in. I love helping people. I think it's very important. But I got to a point in my career where it was all I thought about was, how do I get more deals? How do I get more? And that can be too much. You need to have a little bit of balance.
Yeah.
And I think when I set it aside and I just let it do what it needs to do, and I focused on other things that I like doing, whether it's people, the universe, whatever you want to call it, but I think it noticed, like, now that you're in a state of calm with where this is at, it's going to just happen.
It just comes to you.
It's just going to happen.
What's the difference between an oak seed and an oak? Nothing. The seed contains the oak inside of it, and it just becomes the oak naturally. Mm-hmm. So the same thing happened, right? You're a lender, and you were really, really focusing on your seed, like, it's got to become an oak. I hit it with a hammer, or pour water on it, plant it, then dig it up to see if it's growing. And then when you just planted it and walked away, it happened. I think I listened to this recording a lot. For me, when I want to be clear, and this person says it in his YouTube thing. It's not, everything's trying to get to you. It doesn't mean you do nothing. It just means that you have inspired action and you walk around knowing. Like, so what is knowing? Since we're both in real estate, let's say I wanted to do a $2 million deal. I don't want it. I don't desire it. What does it feel like? What would it feel like to do that? Like, I just closed $2 million deal. What is that feeling? You walk around with that feeling.
That feeling is
Of knowing, of living in the end. A wish fulfilled. If your wish was fulfilled, what would that feel like?
You live as if you've already accomplished. That almost sounds like fake it till you make it.
Well, so
in a weird way. But I mean, people say good things about that too.
I would say, so he references, this guy says the Bible's the most psychological book ever written. And so I want to make sure I get this right. He says there's something like, it's something like believe what you ask for in prayer and it'll be yours. Not ask. The tense is extremely important. But he gives all these little, I guess he was a Christian or a Catholic, and so he uses the Bible. But there's a lot of that in there where you you just know it's coming to you. And so I said, I'm going to do this. So what I did was I was already doing the open houses. And so I just meditated one time where I was like, there's this commercial. It's out. I think it's still out now. And it's actually a sticky note commercial. And I think it's a sticky note commercial. But anyway, so there's this person sitting at a desk and they have something to do. So they write on a sticky note and they turn it around. They put it on this big person that's just covered in sticky notes. So I just meditated and said, okay, I'm this sticky note person, but instead of sticky notes, I'm covered in contracts. And I just have all these contracts just coming to me. I don't know how much they are. I don't know anything about them. Just all these contracts are coming to me and they're sticking to me, and that's it. And shortly, I got done. Shortly after, I had been working with this builder. I'd procured a property for him. He'd torn it down, built this house on it. But he's a builder, but he's also a broker. He called me like 2 days later and is like, hey, do you want to list these properties for me? And so I went over there and I got 4 properties.
Manifested.
It can happen extremely
fast.
It just depends on your energy. And I know, I mean, I've done this in other ways too. Like we needed a car. Last year, one of our cars that went away. We got in an accident. It was totaled and we needed a second car. And I was like, all right, well, we're not ready for one financially, but we need one. And so I started meditating on that. A friend calls me the next day and he's like, hey man, I've got my rental over here. I'd never rented this property for him, but I always knew that he had the rental. He's like, I'm having a hard time getting good clients, good renters. He's like, can you help me? I was like, yeah, man, let's go through it. So we go over there and there takes me to the house and we go through it. And I go, what's going on with this Kia Sorento here? Does it come with the house? And he's like, do you want it? And I was like, what do you mean, do I want it? He's like, it needs a this.
Yeah.
You can have it. And I was like, really? So I had it towed and my mechanic was like, $200. And so it was a 2007. So I want to be clear, this wasn't like a really new car or one that was overly reliable. I mean, he wasn't driving it, right? So we got it repaired for, I think it was like $200, $250. So $500 with the tow. And we drove that car for like 5 months. Then it developed this electrical problem. But during that 5 months, I had enough sales. I was like, all right, let's go buy this car.
To buy another car.
And that one just went away. I sold it for $400.
Right. But it solved your problem.
And so that's how manifestation, that's how this energy thing works. Like,
but sometimes I feel like it also has to do with recognizing that is something that you need. You know what I mean? Someone was talking about this with me yesterday. They were like, have you ever noticed, actually no, they said they quoted a study. They said they got a bunch of people in a room, like 100 people, and they asked everybody, do you consider yourself to be lucky or unlucky? 60% of them consider themselves to be lucky, and 40% of them consider themselves to be unlucky. And then they did another thing with them where they had them walk around in this maze, and somewhere in the maze they left a $100 bill. Everyone that considered themselves to be lucky noticed it and then put it in their pocket and kept it and was like, look at me, I'm lucky, Whereas everybody that considered themselves not to be lucky, they didn't even notice the bill.
$100 bill.
They didn't even see it.
Yeah.
And it was because they had a mindset of, I'm not lucky. That's not for me. That's
Exactly,
not supposed to be mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it came down to, like what you said with the car. If you just considered yourself like that car would never be an option for me. If you had that mindset of that's just not going to work.
Well, the other thing too is we are. I don't never lived in another country, so I can't say everybody. But as Americans, we're told that there's a path, and you do these things, and it leads to this. So we're really focused on the how, and the universe could give a shit about how. They're just like, here it is. And so when I did that, I wasn't concerned about the how I was going to get that car. I just knew that we had to have one. And so I just kind of meditated on it, and I just was like, okay, that's it. Same thing happened we needed to get my oldest into a different school district. And my wife was like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? I'm like, just chill. It's going to happen. Just know that it's going to happen. Don't think about the how. Just know that it's going to happen. And it happened. And she's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to write a fake lease for this, blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to risk my career on this. I said, I mean, as a nuclear option, maybe.
Possibly.
But no.
But no, it's not necessary.
I'm not worried about the how.
Yeah.
I just know that it's going to happen. And so it happened. And it happened maybe a week later. I got a call from a friend, and they wanted to live in a certain area. And so it just happened to be in the same area that we needed information on to get my child into a different school.
So it all connected.
It just all, And so some people will say, oh, well, that's just coincidence. I'm like, okay. I mean, you're unlucky or you're lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in my mind, I made
if anything, it's
a
way of getting around anxiety. If anything, it's just anxiety reducing to have that mindset.
I just pictured my child going to this school. I pictured myself having a car. I pictured myself having deals. And then I didn't worry about how those deals were going to happen. I was going to get the car.
Another great quote. This is probably Alex Hormozy or someone like that. But they always say the reason why you have anxiety is because anxiety is your body telling you that you haven't done enough to achieve the thing that you're anxious about. And that confidence is just knowing that you've done whatever you need to be confident about enough so that when you get into a position, like, I do belong here. That's what confidence is. Yeah. It's having done that thing 1,000 times to know it's gonna happen. I'm just confident it's gonna work out.
And sometimes it doesn't. Like Rogan, UFC. You're fighting for the championship. How many of those championship fighters go, I don't think I'm gonna win today? You're about to get smoked, dude. You go into that ring with that attitude. All of them think they're going to win, right? They're all overconfident, but not only one of them wins.
But there is such a thing as blind confidence too. I mean, there is such a thing as, and I've experienced.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Well, yeah, but there is such a thing as there's a scientific term for it when someone doesn't know anything about something. But because they know so little, they think they know so much.
Like a baby.
Exactly.
Like who are the closest to God right now? On the verge of death? Just born, right? Right? About to go there, just left from there.
Mm-hmm.
So the baby knows everything. They just can't say anything to you.
Yeah,
I'd
something
love
like
to
that.
tell you all this stuff, but
that makes a 10-year-old sound a lot wiser than they actually are.
Well, they get corrupted, right? They get corrupted.
That
by
is
us.
true. You love seeing these videos of kids, like the kids say the darndest things, where they go, well, why don't people just not go to war with each other? And it's like, that is such a beautiful insight.
Are you crazy?
But I mean, like, there are some
oil.
I think, to quote the illustrious Kanye West, he had a good quote about this too. He goes, what's interesting is that, he goes, there are kids, I saw this kid the other day, he got on top of a coffee table at a restaurant. And his parents said, get down from there. That's not something that you should be on top of. And the kid then learned, I guess I shouldn't be on top of coffee tables. He goes, but there's really no reason why you can't. I guess, because you might damage the table, you're worried about the owner, all that stuff. But that's the creative part of people is just sometimes you need to do the thing that everyone's saying, oh, no, don't do that, and realize this isn't actually that big of a problem at all.
Yeah.
And it could be totally fixed. And at some point, someone's going to tell you, no, 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 and then you just stop doing it,
I agree. I agree. Last year was a trying year. Everybody told me to get out of real estate. Everybody. And I was like, look, and the people that were real close to me too were like, maybe you should think about getting a different job, And I was like, I can't. I'm not going back to corporate.
Dude, me neither.
I'm not going to.
No way.
And I don't have any problems with people that love corporate or that in corporate. Like, I don't want to swing a hammer again.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't mind swinging a hammer, but I make more money in real estate, so I just was like, I'm not. This is it. I got to make this work. I've got to do what I got to do. I got to fill the holes, as I would say. Like I was not doing well, not because of the market. I wasn't doing well because I hadn't developed the skills. Kind of what you had said earlier, leading into what you had said earlier. I hadn't developed the skill set to handle that market. There were holes in my game, and I was like, okay, I've got to fill these holes. And then what I do have, one of my strengths, predictive analysis, hopefully will become something that's needed, right? It was needed in 2020 through 2022 because prices were just skyrocketing. And now that they're going down, it's needed again. But it's different this time because now the clients are finding me, right? And so now when I talk to them, like, look, this is, if you're working with an agent or your past agent, if they weren't looking at pendings and active under contract, and what those are is somebody has a house for sale, somebody makes an offer, they accept the offer, then the lender has to close the deal, right? That time between when the offer is accepted and it closes is a pending transaction. What that means is that when they close, that's the future, right? Where's the market going? It's over here in the future.
Yeah.
But if you contact this agent and sweet talk them, you might find out where the future is. And that could be up, it could be down. And when you can gather that information and then mix it with a little bit of the past, now you know where the market is, where it's going. If you can't do that, you're probably going to be too high if you're listing, and if you have a buyer's agent, you might be paying too much.
Yeah.
Right. So now that has come back into favor, and I have I talk to a lot of agents that are selling, and they're just like, and there's no magic pill. Like, I don't want to make it seem like, well, I would just take their listing and do these things, and that means that they would get an offer. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I don't want to make it seem like this thing that I do is all encompassing, and if they just do what I say, it'll sell. But in my mind, the chances are if they do this, they'll have a better hold on the market, and they'll likely price the house better. And then they'll get an offer because that's where the market's at, right? The market's going down. If there's a house that's listed at 500, I'm about to take some clients out this weekend. They're looking at a house that's priced at 495, started at 510, 495 now. Their budget is like, they could go to 5, but they want to be in the 450 range. So I did all this, and I did this 2 weeks ago, so I've got to freshen it up. I got to call some pendings and see where the market's at. But when I did it the first time, the market was like 455, 465. Like, that's where it's going to sell. But those pendings haven't closed yet. But I know, when I talked to those agents, and even if they say, because technically I'm not party to that transaction, so they might not want to tell me.
So you're waiting for them to sell.
That's what everybody else is doing. I'm not. I find the sell price out before it sells. And then I say, okay, we know this one's going to close in 15 days, and it's at 425, listed at 500. That is dramatically going to affect the sale price,
right,
of the one we're going to make an offer on.
Oh, okay.
So now I have this like secret information that everybody's waiting for, but I have. Now they could
But this
have
is
it
this
too.
is you with a buyer, not a seller.
Even if I was doing it with a seller, I would do the same thing. I would say, "Hey, look, you think your house is worth 500, and this
Yeah, but-
data set says it is."
But what I understand is with a seller, if you found out that information, you would say, we got to get this thing moving now because when that thing closes, we are screwed.
Exactly.
But with a buyer, it's like, we should wait.
No, with a buyer, you say, "We have to come in at 450. We're going to come in at 440."
But if that one's going to close at 425, if you wait, it could be lower.
It's one closing. I agree.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the seller thinks that their property is worth 395 or 495, right? So to go from 495 to 425, they're like, I'm not giving away my house. So then you have to like position this information to the list agent. So you can say, "Hey, list agent, look, I called this person. This is going to be a comp. They're at 425. I called this one. This is going to be a comp. They're at 420. They're at 465.
Yeah.
This one has already sold. This one is too far in the past." So, and this is not like, I'm not going like East Austin to West Austin. Like this is all in a couple, small radius. So then when you present it to them, like, "Look, you think we're lowballing, but when these comps hit, we might not make appraisal at 500. Then what are we doing?"
Yeah.
Then they're like, "Ooh." Then they want this. Then they can. If I pull the strategy off right, what I do is I make the list agent a double agent, meaning I make them turn around and go to their client and say, "You should take this deal.
Yeah.
Sean's right," even though they won't say it like that. But that's the goal. So you have to orchestrate the whole, on the buy side, you have to orchestrate the whole deal so that you can get a lower offer. It's not just submitting, because you will piss them off. But it's a buyer's market. So,
Yeah.
So we'll just go buy the house next door.
Yeah, that is true. There's not much brain work that needs
So
to go
some
into
of it
that.
is that. It's like, hey, man, look, like,
it's like, this is all bullshit anyway. There's
look at
another
these
house right over
comps.
there.
Look at these comps. It's not going to be worth that. Your client should take this offer now.
It is.
Or they can take one lower 3 months from now.
It is
It's up to them.
completely crazy. Oh, excuse me. It's completely crazy the amount of homes that are for sale in Austin right now too.
17,000.
Because I do I go to open houses, like I say, and when like a year ago, when I would go to open houses, there wouldn't be that many. Now I'll drive down a street and there'll be like 4 or 5 homes for sale on one street. It's crazy.
It's nuts right now. But,
Yeah.
so I think rates come down a little bit. Buyers will be ready. Will they get better deals now? Maybe. From a sale price, they will, but it just depends on the location. Because it's not like right now we're getting a ton of comps because there's just not that many buyers. So not everything is coming off the market. So prices are coming down. List prices are coming down. And then once one goes under contract, that's why it's the same as back in 2020. Something going under contract, that information is extremely valuable because it's in the future. And nobody knows it yet.
Yeah.
Now, if everybody can know it, if they called that agent, but they don't. And then to get that agent to tell you what it is, all of that is skill, right? So it's not, when I say it's a skills market, like, oh, you just call them and text them and ask them. Sure. But what if they tell you, so this is what the text would be like. I'd text you, Eric, hey, I saw that your home on 123 Banana Street went under contract. Congrats, man. Really good job. Look, I'm pricing a home in the neighborhood, and we want to nail it down, and we know yours is going to be a comp. Did you guys close above list, just below, or right at? And then depending on the agent, and I mean, it's like
What's the downside of them telling you?
for them? The only downside would be is if there's still an option period. There's still an option, which for those of you out there that don't know what option period, it's a short period of time where the buyer has an opportunity to do due diligence on the house, find out anything they want about the house. And if they find out that the foundation's cracked, they can back out of the deal and get their earnest money back. So if they're in option and they tell you, so I try to be respectful. Like if they're in option, I'm a little bit, can you please tell me? Because if they're in option and they fall out of option, let's say, again, priced at 500, they accepted 425 and they fall out of option, What if I have a buyer that wants to buy that house? We know they just took
Yeah.
425. It inhibits their seller from possibly making more money. I would say this though, if I had a seller that happened, like we were only getting these offers at 425, I'd be like, look, the market's spoken. We really got to think about, taking one of these. And if they took it and they fell out of option for some reason, I'd be like, let's just list it 425 and get this thing sold.
Yeah.
Or 435. Like, let's have a major price reduction.
Yeah. Do you think, let's say rates don't go down. How much longer will there have to be drops in home prices before that breaking point happens? If rates are just going to be exactly where they are, how many more months of home depreciation would it take?
I think what we're going to see is a lot of expireds. When you say break, you mean like, what do you mean by break?
I mean, there is, like, let's say a home right now listed at $400,000. It's on the market for a while. They drop to 390, 380, 370. At what? And just using that as a framework, where does Austin need to be? How many months does it take of things being completely still as they are before it gets low enough where people go, okay, now it's like a really good deal, and it's going to start swinging the other way?
It's a hard question to answer because, one, again, it goes back to some people can buy a house in a day. Most have to get ready. So I think that time is now. It's just that buyers aren't ready. And so now they're like, okay, let's look into it. I think the data that I would look at is how many people, when an event happens, like let's say the next time the Fed meets, we look at how many times people Googled mortgage rates, Fed rate cut. That kind of data is extremely valuable because now you have an idea of what buyers are thinking. Not all buyers, but if and this is all across America too. So Austin is different than other markets, but everybody gets the same interest rate. It's not like California's in the 3s and we're in the 7s. Everybody gets the same interest rate. So that's why it's hard to happen. But I think what's happening is a few things. One, something I touched on earlier, there aren't as many agents in the market, right? And when you have a part-time agent that's working, they're working at their office and they're talking real estate. Maybe not all the time, but a lot because they're trying to get some deals going, right? When that agent leaves, it's like, hey, somebody be like, hey, Bob, I'm thinking about buying a house. You know an agent? Well, Eric's an agent. Eric, hey, man, are you an agent? No, I'm not an agent. I didn't do my license. I decided to do woodworking, whatever they tell them. Now there's no chitter chatter. Now there's no agent that they can at least interview about the market. Now they have to go out and find one. Maybe they have friends, maybe they don't, but before you could swing a dead cat and hit 50 agents, now you can't do that. And so now which agent is really good? What about the NAR settlement? The further you get down the rabbit
Has that
hole,
changed the way you do anything lately?
It does, yeah. For me, it has because I'm with EXP, and so when I work with a seller, I don't negotiate the buyer's commission. I just negotiate mine. And then we do have a document that states, hey, if you were going to pay a buyer's commission, what would it be? And I tell them about the document, and then we're going to put to be determined, right? TBD. And I say the reason why we're going to do that is because we don't know what the offer in this market right now. Likely, you're paying 3%. And if anybody's taking a hit, it's probably the list agent. But it just depends. There's a lot of variables in between when you give up your commission and when you don't. But we do the to be determined because we need to see the contract in a whole. So, for example, if the buyer's agent wants 3%, great. But the buyer wants 6% in seller concessions, right? So seller concessions is when the seller gives up some of their proceeds to pay for the buyer's closing costs, just anything related to their loan. Or they could be a buy down rate, that type of thing. That's 9%. That's a lot of money, right? So as a list agent, you have to have a strategy. How are you going to get go from 9% to as close to 0 as possible?
Right.
Right. And so that's how it's changed. If you don't have that strategy, if you don't know how to negotiate the buyer's agent commission without negotiating it, then you're behind the curve. And so for me, there's a specific language that I use. Like, so agents will call when I have listings and say, hey, are you guys offering 3%? I never say yes. Never. I just say, I tell them where to put their commission. And that's it. I don't tell them what commission it is, mainly because
TBD.
TBD. Yeah, we need to see the whole contract. So I'm not going to tell them we're not paying them 3, or my clients don't want to.
Right.
But if I do, they're going to be like, oh, they're not paying 3%. And the buyer will be like, all right, well, let's buy their neighbor's house. You know, so specific. First, I negotiate my commission only. Second, we wait for the contracts to come to see what we can do with the buyer's agent commission, because really there's nothing we can do with buyer's agent commission. They're going to get their 3. What we need to find out is if there's seller concessions, how do we get that down? And so for me, what I do is I say, for EXP, we do what's called seller to broker payment. Basically, that's how the buyer's agent commission gets paid. It gets paid from the seller to that brokerage. In the years past, it was broker to broker, right?
Right.
So then we have them put their commission in paragraph 12. And then I say, let's say they're asking for $24,000 total. I go to my client and I say, look, they're asking for 24. Let's say 14 of it is the buyer's agent commission. 14 of it is for closing costs. How much do you want to put in there? I know the answer is 0. How much do you want to put in there?
Right.
And then they come up with a number. And I say, okay. And then I go back to the agent and I say, my clients are willing to do this much in paragraph 12.
Yeah.
So I don't tell them, you got to take your commission down, dog, you know, or your client doesn't get any seller concessions.
Yeah.
I just say, hey, this is what we're willing to do. You guys divvy it up. And then it puts it on the agent to like go back and say, hey, I'm worth a 3% or I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and then, but that also opens up conversation. Hey, they need this money. They need the $14,000 to close the deal.
Yeah.
Or else they won't be able to do it. Then now we know more about the other side. Now we can make a better guess or better decisions with that information. Right? So it's really, the negotiations are always about gathering as much information about the other side as possible, and only sharing information that will benefit you and your client. Right. So sharing that my seller doesn't want to pay buyer's agent commission, I don't want to do that.
Doesn't help anybody. Yeah.
But sharing that they will pay this much into paragraph 12, where the seller concession is and the buyer's agent commission is, that is positive. So to me, it's the difference between what I try to do is in negotiations. I don't want to sit across from the other side. I want to sit next to the other agent and do a deal this way, not push it back and forth.
Right.
I decide, let's get this deal done. But the goal is to, you know, and I can say this with confidence that I've gotten my ass whooped early on when I was doing deals. That wasn't anything major, but agents know when the other agent got over. If they don't know, then they're getting over on a lot. And so that's my goal, is to like make sure that my client gets the best deal. That's what their goal is. Sometimes the best deal, what the buyer wants, the seller could care less about.
Right.
And vice versa. So it's an easy deal. Everything revolves around price. So once you get that settled, everything else kind of falls in place. But price is always a big deal.
Trying to think of a good way that we can go on finality, because we got to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm sure my wife is like, I turned my ringer off.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, where you at? We got stuff to do.
Might just call it, actually. I think that might be the move.
Well, this is what I would say. You know,
Yeah.
we touched on a lot of
Yeah.
subjects.
Yeah.
But it's generally, we're doing this, we're both in real estate. So if you're out there and you're thinking you can or can't buy, or you want to get in the market, obviously call Eric, call myself, or call somebody, talk to a friend, get in touch with an agent, just start investigating. Because right now, we haven't had a buyer's market in Austin since like 90 something, right? And so our rate's going to go down. They will. When? We don't know. I don't want to say things like, you know, do a buy down or something like that, but this is the one chance you have right now to get into a house at a really low price, and to build wealth. Stay in this house for 7 to 10 years. You're going to have a chunk of change at the end of it. And then you buy another one, and you rent that one out, the one you just bought out, and you can build wealth this way just by doing whatever you're doing at your job. And it's the one way in America where Americans have a chance to build wealth. Not get rich, build wealth. You could pass it on to your kids. Do a 1031 exchange. We didn't even get into that, you know.
Yeah.
All kinds of exotic loans right now, zero down, bridge loans, just everything is at your disposal now from a buyer's standpoint. And so it's time. Maybe, you know, my opinion is we're going to ride this market to, you know, I think even if rates do go down to 5.8, 5.9, or 6, and that'd be a really good rate, so you might be at 6.2 or 6.4. I still think that's, for what we've been seeing, that's still a great rate. That's just going to kind of level things out. There's no such thing as a crash in real estate. We just went through one, 2008 to 2011. So it doesn't go like this really fast, and it doesn't go like that either. It takes time. So if getting ready means you're going to buy next year, do it. Don't miss this opportunity, because there were a ton of people, and I spoke to a lot of them, that didn't buy between 2012 and 2019. And then 2020 hit, and prices skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So right now, we're at a low. We're at a low where you can get a low price. The rate you can always change. Of course, you have to refinance, things like that. But when that changes, you can change. You'll never change that entry price. That'll always be what it is.
That was the dream. If you bought in 2008, between 2008 and 2019, man.
And so I have family members and friends that didn't buy, and 2020 came, they're like, oh, I missed it. I'm like, I've been telling you. I mean, I've only been an agent since 2016. But when I bought my first house in 2006, even then I was telling everybody to get in, buy.
Yeah,
do it. Just do it. You'll never, I didn't want to say you'll never get this opportunity again, but I'm like, it's now. Now is the time to get in and do it.
Yeah.
And then, next year. If your next year is 2026, you need to start getting ready now. If you need help, Eric, myself, we've got people that can help you with your credit score, all of those things. There's people out that are dying to give you, that have resources, and they're dying to use them. So get in it. And then be prepared, be realistic with where you can live. We wanted to live in Westlake.
Oh, yeah.
We just didn't have $900,000 to do it.
Yeah.
Back in 2018.
Well, it's funny talking to people from Westlake, because a lot of people in Westlake that I talk to, they're like, we've been here for 20 years, and you can tell that they are hanging on by a thread.
The taxes and all
yeah,
that. Yeah,
they are hanging on by a thread, and they just inherited this mansion, but they're sitting out there like, dang, we are really trying. We can't leave. Like, this is it.
Yeah, we're trapped. No.
But
that's generational wealth right there.
Oh yeah,
Their parents
generational wealth.
went there. There's a lot of people in Buda and Kyle. That's way out there. And
they're
just kind of sitting on their home.
But Buda and Kyle will be like whatever Dallas is, like the what do you call it?
Fort Worth and Denton.
Like the Colony,
Plano.
like all of these places used to just be what Kyle and Buda is now.
Exactly.
That's going to end up being the new outskirts of Austin.
That'll be the new suburbs.
Yeah.
And what is that? That's time in the market.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about buying, you're kind of in the market, but time in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Get it. Do it now.
Perfect. I think that's a solid ending. That's good. So,
Eric, had a great time, man. I want to do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. That was fun. That was a good one.
We'll see y'all next time.
Okay.
Take care.
Peace.